Nick.
Here.
Ian.
Hello.
Scott. Here.
Okay.
Sean. Not here.
Just crickets.
Yeah.
That's a spot-on Sean impression, by the way.
Spot-on Sean impression was the name of my cover band in high school. I never comment on like Facebook posts that are just like big, posts where thousands of people can see it because it's not worth it. But I did see something where like, I really want to drop in here with a band name because it was so perfect. I think someone was talking about a scrotal rib cage. And I was like, that's the ultimate band name.
Scrotal ribcage?
Yes.
What the what is that even?
Oh, you never heard of that?
Because they were talking about like evolution should have given some means of protection, like a scrotal rib cage.
Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mythos Busters, I almost said it was a Mythos Busters production. I just recorded Achievement Hunter yesterday, so... Oh my god, word one. I'm not gonna do it like Sean, I'm gonna do it my way. And then I fucked up right away. This is episode 108. I'm Nick. As you can tell, Sean is not with us tonight. He is off doing family stuff this evening, so we're gonna try and pilot this thing ourselves. We did it last week, now can we land the plane? That's the question. Here with me this week, my co-pilot is Ian. How you doing, Ian?
Oh, hello there.
Hi.
I am scared of being the co-pilot because I'm scared of heights and flying in general, but, I think I can help steer, avoid the ground at least.
When there's, I don't know, is it called a yoke? The airplane steering wheel? There's one on the pilot side and there's one on the co-pilot side. I've always wondered what would happen if they both point their yokes in opposite directions.
I think if we were the flight crew, we'd probably find out.
And that voice, of course, that was Scott. So Scott, if Ian's my co-pilot, then Scott, what airline position do you have? I'll throw that one in your court.
Baggage handler.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it. You're on the plane for some reason.
I got trapped in the luggage compartment. I was taking a nap in one of the luggage carts, and it just kind of loaded me, and I'm like, oh, shit. So,
and of course, that would mean that I am acting captain, but I'm actually not. Fooled you guys. I am the flight attendant. There is no captain. That's the joke. Yeah,
Duke's flying the plane. It's that
Duke
that
is
meme with the dog. Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. I have no idea what I'm doing, much like the dog. Awesome. Well, yeah, so like I said, episode 108 today, we are going to discuss a scenario which I have played, A Light in the Fog. Not only have I played it, but in the process of setting it up today, the day that I played it, I turned on Arkham Cards and I heard my own voice speaking back to me. And I was like, oh, apparently I'm already familiar with this. News to me.
Amazing.
Yeah. So... let's start with what have you guys been playing lately? Because I just said mine. The only Arkham I've played recently is I played Mateo and Mary, continued their campaign through Innsmouth with A Light in the Fog. I'm not going to spoil anything yet, because obviously some people who have not played the scenario yet like to listen to this intro bit. I don't know why. But it did not go well. And I'm not forced to, but I am choosing to find a new pair of investigators to start another Innsmouth campaign. Yeah. I'm not forced to. The game isn't ending, but I'm just making the choice based off of how things have gone. That I'm like, nope, I'm gonna rewrite this story.
That's fair.
That was pretty much all that I've done for Arkham lately. I'll talk more about that when we talk about the scenario in depth. And then, like I mentioned earlier, Achievement Hunter episode 15 is out, so you guys can listen in on that. It was just the planning of Dunwich episode, which even after the episode is done and released, I have learned I still have a lot of planning to do because my ashcan plans were not as solid as I had hoped. But that's me. So, Scott, what have you been doing for Arkham lately?
So I have 2 solo campaigns on the go. One is I went back to Zoe solo. Zoe's always been one that I'm like, I waffle on whether I like it or not, and I mean, she's got that Dunwich splash, which is really nice, and now Guardian has a lot more tools than it did, I think, like a year and a half ago when I last played solo Zoe. And I am playing her through TCU, and it's going okay so far. I mean, like, I'm not trying to break any molds of not trying to think crazy. I'm just trying to make a nice, reliable deck. It's got, I don't know, guns and knives and clue tricks, like evidence and scene of the crime, like, just stuff. And then I also went back. I was driving home from work one day. I was like, man, I haven't played Desperate Duke in forever with Yaddle and like all the desperate skills and stuff like that. And I have a standalone deck that I play. I played with you guys actually at Arkham Knights a couple times that I really like, and it's like 9 XP to get full build. Like it takes nothing, right? And so I was like, man, I've never actually done this in a campaign though. Like I've never started from zero and seen how that goes. So I'm taking him through Return to Carcosa, and I'm pretty much almost at full build now. I'm going into, oh goodness, I always forget it. It's the one after the dinner party. The name
Echoes of
the Past? No. Is it?
That sounds like that should be the name of a scenario, but I don't think it actually is.
I think it is. It's the one where you go in the building and the cult.
Yeah, I know the map. I remember the map. Yeah, I just can't remember the name. It is Echoes of the Past. Oh.
So
why did that sound right and wrong? I don't know.
I love Carcosa to death. That one scenario, I forget it exists every time until I go to set it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, this one. Like it's just it's good. It's fine. It's just it feels like it's a very I want to say plain.
It's the most vanilla scenario in that campaign.
Right. And not trashing it. I think it's well designed. It works well. It's just every other scenario is just hitting these like different mechanics and banging these things out. And this one's just like, hey, do you want to play normal Arkham? More or less? Yeah, sure I do. I thought about it today as I was setting up the Light in the Fog map.
But Echoes of the Past's big thing was like, look how the map handles 3 floors of a single building. Like that was the thing that when we first played it before it released, when we played it with MJ at Arkham Knights. Yeah. That was the thing that I remember standing out. Nothing else from that game I remember other than like when MJ set up the map, I was like, oh, that's so cool. The top row is the top floor. The middle row is like, I remember being amazed by such a mundane thing. You know what I mean? So,
that's sweet summer children.
Yeah.
Or I guess late fall at that point. But
right.
And, I mean, it does have the cool mechanic of the cultists essentially trying to investigate against you, like stealing clues against Doom and all that stuff.
But if it's solo.
But if you're solo, man, you can just blow through it. And so, yeah.
And that gets a little, like, it was a little bit more of a challenge in Return because they add the extra floor, but most of the time you can just ignore the basement if you don't. Like, the first game you don't because you want to go down and see what the locations are like. Yeah. But otherwise, you don't really need to go into it. And
in 4-player, it can get hairy. Like,
yes.
I've had some really hairy like games in 4-player in Echoes of the Past. But solo, it's... So that and I play primarily solo, and so that scenario just kind of seemed to... It clutches of chaoses for me, if you know what I mean. Just disappears from my mind.
No, Nick doesn't know what you mean.
Yeah, what is that? Is that a book? Is that one of the novellas I haven't read? What's this?
Ian, what have you been playing?
Well, I finished bringing all of my 5 initial Innsmouth campaigns through the end, through Maelstrom,
Nice.
and 4 out of 5 were successful and won the campaign, which is definitely my highest success rate for initial campaigns ever. Usually it's a lot less. Usually it'll be like 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 if I'm really lucky. And the one campaign that failed was the one that they were a really strong duo of Mary and Amanda, but it's just one of those things where Arkham gonna Arkham and just got dogpiled with enemies. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I did start, now that I am done with my initial runs, I'm in the period of time which I really like, which is you've kind of played through all the scenarios of a campaign. Now you can start some new campaigns knowing everything you know about the campaign, and that's when I really start having, I mean, I have fun before that too, but I really enjoy that process of trying to figure out how to counter the campaign and get the best results. So I started with a new duo of Joe and Rita. Rita, of course, being one of my favorites. Joe being someone who I recently expressed on the podcast that I kind of bounce off Joe. I haven't had a lot of success with him or haven't played him in a while. So I was like, okay, let me try Joe. So Joe is kind of a weird handcuffs build. So the whole idea with Joe is getting handcuffs to fire off, and I have interrogate and persuasion in the hunch deck, and scene of the crime, of course, is always going to be in the hunch deck, but and find clothes. So just using all the handcuffs stuff. I think out of the 3 scenarios I've played, like, that whole kit has come together once so far. And it was nice when it came off, though. Like, I was able to use persuasion and interrogate, and I kept having interrogate come up because I kept drawing the elder sign, so I was cycling it back into my hunch deck. So that actually worked well. The other times it's just because of how Innsmouth is, sometimes you just don't have that time to get this whole build going. Of course, right. Handcuffs is kind of action intensive to get going. Like, you have to play it down. You have to do the handcuffs action. Then you have to engage the enemy if you want to drag it around with you. So it's pretty action intensive when Joe is the main, the main clover. But I knew that going in. I still wanted to try it because I wanted to make Joe more interesting to me. And so far it has been. And then Rita, I've played Rita a lot as just, what you would expect Rita to do. So this time I'm like, okay, what if I made her the main killer, though? So Joe's going to be the clover. I just went all in on weapons with Rita and see what happens. And of course, she still has the evade in case you need to do like a different form of enemy management. And that has actually worked out really well so far. Mainly because I think one of the things she can do that a lot of killers can't is just that mobility. So, like, if Joe is being dumb, i.e. I'm being dumb and have him wandering off by himself, like, Rita can just sprint across the map and still have actions to kill an enemy engaged with him, stuff like that. So that has worked out really well so far. I'm trying to think if there's anything like too different about the build itself. Not really. It's more about how I'm piloting the build. But I do have like stuff like breaking and entering and stunning blow, which can give some auto evades, which you can then trigger her ability off of, and you just kind of combine actions that way. So I don't know. It's a fun pairing so far. They're doing pretty well.
Nice. I just now realized that deep ones have the humanoid trait.
Mm-hmm. They sure
you
do.
Can handcuff a deep one. Like,
for now they do.
For now they do. Yeah, just give them another few months and they'll lose that humanoid trait.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, that was one of the things I was thinking of too when I was thinking of Innsmouth. I was like, okay, handcuffs could work. There's a lot of humanoids running around in Innsmouth. Awesome. Yeah, and I still have to complete my Into Deep play. I'm in one of those things where I have the game in progress. Although they did I said they're doing well so far, but the they would have been doing well in Into Deep, but I think at last count I had drawn 10 auto fails throughout the course of the scenario,
Whoa.
and I'm not even done with it. Like, yeah, I mean, there's just not much you could do against that. They still might pull it out, who knows, but I don't think so. I think they're going to get...
Into Deep is like the 15 location race across the map, right? Oh my god, 10
they're about halfway through the map, like the middle of the map, and there's not that much time left to go, but we'll see. Yeah. Turns out 10 autofails can slow you down. No matter what cards are in your deck. Yeah.
Just a bit of a tempo hit there.
Yeah, just a bit.
Ouch. Well, fun though. I mean, you've completed. You're on what, like in Innsmouth campaign number 6 with Joe and Rita? Like that's your 6th time through Innsmouth?
Yeah.
Oh God, I've played as many scenarios of Innsmouth as you have played campaigns of Innsmouth. I still marvel at your how prolific you are in getting those campaigns out. That's awesome. Real quick, if anybody has paid attention to our Discord, you've noticed a snazzy new logo. We did it a little late, but it was in honor of Pride Month, but we're going to keep it going. And in addition to that awesome new Rainbow Pride logo, you can stop by mythosmerch.com and find some new merch with that logo. 100% of what we make from that logo will go to the Trans Lifeline charity. So definitely head on in. I think there's a shirt, sticker, mug, that sort of thing, kind of like the regular accoutrement. So pick some of that up, and you'll be donating to a very good cause with that Trans Lifeline charity. In the effort. I know my wife is already like looking at our online store, and I'll tell you one thing: if my wife is looking at it, then we're doing something right, because she's like, "Ooh, this looks. Oh, I would love to get this. Oh, I'm gonna get this. Awesome!" And I was like, "Okay, cool." So very important to stop by there and check that out. And then Scott, you want to cover our voicemail prompt?
Oh boy. So I guess this is the episode where my fighting words come home to roost. I guess you reap what you sow. So one of the previous prompts for our hotline, which by the way is 203-493-MYTH. That's 203-493-6984. Or you can go to our Facebook page on your phone and just click call and leave us a voicemail. So I may have said some fighting words about cards I thought that were, slightly overrated. But we also asked for comments about what cards you were lukewarm on and now you think are great. Or vice versa. Something that, you were super hot on and came down on. And so we have a few answers here. I, of course, came out of the blocks with some fighting words with saying I think Safina's a bit overrated, and as is Shortcut, and oh man, the chat that night was on fire. But it's voicemail time.
Hey guys, Captain Squally here. As a huge fan of the show, I take it upon myself to keep an eye out for you guys and look to your safety. I intercepted a rather worrying message that seems to be directed at Scott and some of his comments about the card Shortcut on the last episode. Replaying the transmission in full. Stay safe out there. What the hell did you just freaking say to me, you little pill? I'll have you know, I graduated top of my class at Miskatonic University, majoring in shortcut studies, and I've been involved in numerous secret raids on cults all over Arkham, with over 300 confirmed kills. I am trained in taking shortcuts, and I'm the top pathfinder in the entire city of Arkham. You are nothing to me but just another lousy twit. I will wipe you the hell out with strange solutions, the likes of which have never been seen before on this earth. Mark my words. You think you can get away with saying that bunk to me on your magical radio show? Think again, twit. As we speak, I am contacting my secret network of librarians and art students across the entire city of Arkham, and your position is being researched right now. So you better prepare for the storm, maggot. The storm that wipes out the pathetic thing you call your life. You're freaking dead, kid. I can be anywhere, anytime, and can shortcut to your location in over 700 ways. And that is just with the level 0 version. Not only am I extensively trained in taking shortcuts, but I have access to the entire suite of OP seeker cards. And I will use them to their full extent to wipe your miserable ass off the face of the continent, you little twit. If only you could have known what unholy retribution your clever comment was about to bring down on you. Maybe you would have found a hiding spot. But you couldn't. You didn't. And now you're paying the price, you wacky twit. I will drop a fury on you that shakes the earth. You're freaking dead, pally.
Wow, that came out swinging.
Yeah. Not only did it come out swinging, it didn't stop.
Yeah.
He kept going until you were down.
Well, I appreciate
Holy
that
cow.
Captain Squall is trying to keep me safe from this angry gentleman. Apparently, so Network's telling us in chat, this is based on the famous Navy SEAL meme from 4chan, and he changed it into Scott and Shortcut or something like that. So
Nice.
I don't listen to these voicemails beforehand so that my reaction can be pure. So now I need to go figure out this meme and re-listen. But
So wait a minute, Scott. Am I learning from this that you don't consider Shortcut an auto-include in Seeker?
that is correct. No, I think it's still good. It's still a strong card. I just think it's, for a long time, it's been considered auto-include.
Sure.
And I even thought an auto-include. It was an auto-include to me, and then I don't know, I kind of started thinking about it, and I'm like, do I really, in certain decks, yes, I will put it in, like Ursula, right, where movement makes a lot of sense. Where it gives you more than just movement, right? Because it gives you movement and investigate.
Right.
But there's some decks I just wouldn't put it in.
Sure.
I don't know how to explain. Shortcut has to make its way into the deck like every other card, right?
Yeah.
It has to present its argument to me.
Right.
Well, I have to present. Anyways.
Right.
The
It's not
cards
like
don't-
Premonition.
Oh
Oh no! Scott, Premonition, you put that in every purple deck. I don't play purple, but I know that.
I don't think think Premonition goes in every deck anymore either.
What?
I don't know. I think,
Now Nick's gonna fight you.
Yeah.
well, here's the thing. Would you rather Premonition or a card that makes sure you essentially pass any test you want? You know
But
what I mean?
you can never be sure of that unless you Premonition.
You're right, but
Premonition is how you get. That's the card you're describing.
I guess to me, I'd rather a card that just gives me a boost or icons or something where it does something more than just once. Something like Holy Rosary, for instance, right? It gives you additional willpower until you meet this threshold where the only token that's going to stop you is an auto fail. Where if you drew an auto fail with Premonition, it's going to happen anyways.
Right, but then at least you know not to throw all your shit at it. You know not to commit skills, and that's the power of Premonition is when you're on the fence about how much to commit. If you're maybe tied with the difficulty or one up, that sort of thing. You Premonition. Well, that's when I do it at least.
I guess my argument would be I want things that will events or assets that will get me to that critical mass where I'm 4 up and I don't need to commit anything, and so I'm just doing the action.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I mean, I'm sure there's a super lean Luke deck out there that uses Premonition where you're just drawing cards, chucking cards, cycling your deck as quickly as you can, just taking small bonuses from a lot of cards and just doing it a lot.
Right.
I could see that. And again, Premonition, not a bad card. It fits in decks. It's not an auto-include to me.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think both of those, they're not necessarily auto-includes for me. I am still really hot on Premonition, though. Especially as someone who plays a lot of rogues where you pour a lot of stuff into one test. I'm like, yes, please, let me have the Mystic Investigator throw down a Premonition.
Yeah, for sure. If there's ever a rogue Premonition, Like, I mean, yeah, that just...
It should be like a paid fortune teller or something.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Okay.
All right, next voicemail.
Hey, Mythos Busters. This is Jeff, or Winging It, as I'm known around the place. I'm calling in to talk about over and underrated cards. So first thing, before I got into two cards that I think are overrated, I wanted to ask this question, and is our concept of overrated or underrated more about our own progression as players? Since we don't really see necessarily what everybody else is playing, I think a lot of the cards that I think are over or underrated are mostly due to how my own evaluation has changed. As in, I never took this card before, and now I do, so clearly it's underrated, when that may not even be true of how other people look at the card, it's just how I look at the card. So that's one thing I've thought about as we've gone through this conversation. But that aside, I think there are two overrated cards that I see often brought up, which are Charisma and Stick to the Plan, which are both very good cards. But I see, like, I just saw a post today on Facebook saying, people saying that they just take these cards in every single build that can take them. And I don't think you do. So for Stick to the Plan, I think it's a really good card. Very good card. But it's a lot of XP to spend that could be used to add more problem-solving cards to your deck. The setup of it is definitely nice, but it may not be necessary as like some other upgrades are and some other tools that you may need to add to your deck first. I used to make this my first upgrade in every Guardian deck, which goes back to my whole, like, I used to, overrate the card, looking at my own playing patterns. But I find now that I put it off more and more. And, a specific example is for 6XP, you can also get 2 stand-togethers, which I just think is just a lot more value for your team. And it also helps, with setup. So anyway, to talk about Charisma, it's a really great card, again. But it's really great in builds that need it. I've learned to try to avoid putting in Charisma by default. Allies are expensive in terms of actions and resources to play them, and often you can get away with playing them serially, as you won't have the resources to play them up front together anyway. In those cases, Charisma is a luxury buy toward the end of the campaign. Arcane Initiate and insert other Mystic ally here is a good example of that. Often you can play your Arcane Initiate, find your spells, and then put down the ally that you actually want to run. And then towards the end of the scenario, when you have some XP to burn, you get a Charisma, and then you can have them out together. Obviously, Charisma is great and necessary for many builds, but I find a lot of value in my own play, pushing myself not to use it if I can save card slots or, and put other things in. When I do have a strategy that does require multiple allies, then I feel like I'm being intentional about it, and I make sure to grab it early. So those are the two cards I think are overrated, just because I do see people actually say, put these cards in every build, and I don't think they go in every build. So anyway, enjoy the podcast. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. I agree with Jeff.
Totally. 100%. I used to think that, like, I remember when Charisma was revealed, and when we first got our hands on it in Dunwich, it was like, yeah, Charisma every time, baby. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I fell off that kind of quick. I could be wrong. But I don't have a memory of Charisma being auto-include, first upgrade, much long after Dunwich. And that could have been because Dunwich was so light on experience to begin with that I kind of realized I was spending a not insignificant chunk of my build just to get additional ally slots, which I ended up not necessarily needing, I don't think. And Stick to the Plan's the same thing. Like, as soon as I hit 6 experience, the first thing I do is I look at Stick to the Plan. Mm-hmm. But now, instead of just throwing it in, what I do then is look at my build and go, all right, what targets do I have for it? Even if I have 3 targets for it, do I like these targets for it? Are they, if I buy Stick to the Plan, do I feel like I need to also then spend 2 experience getting a Dynamite Blast or, another target that I like on it, but that isn't in my deck, So, I totally agree with his assessment.
Yeah, it really depends, and I think this is pretty much always the answer to almost any question in Arkham Horror, which is it depends on the investigator and the build. But yeah, I think initially Charisma was like, because the card pool is smaller, yeah, I'm going to throw it in every deck, but there's a lot of builds where you just have one ally you're planning to keep around the whole game. They're kind of integral to what your deck is doing, so I don't really need charisma. There's no point. I usually take charisma in a couple cases. One is because it's an investigator where I know I'm going to need a lot of soaks for whatever reason. Like, let's say it's a low sanity investigator who's going to need a lot of help. I might do charisma so I can just soak a lot of horror that way. Or if it's a situation where it's not like just that one ally you need, like there could be a couple allies who could work for it, or maybe even two allies who might work well together. So I think those are it's still very powerful for 3 XP, but because allies are so good, but it's not an auto include in this. And stick to the plan. Again, if it's a build where I know I need to, let's say, refill ammo a lot or find a particular weapon quickly, then yeah, I'll go for stick to the plan.
Yeah. Stick to the plan, like, I'm going to jump in real quick again. Sorry, Scott. Like, my favorite card on Stick to the Plan is Ever Vigilant, and that will always be my favorite card on Stick to the Plan. Because having that at turn 1 is a godsend. And that I think is worth 7 XP if every scenario after that you're able to windmill slam even 2 high dollar assets, not even 3, but even just 2. So if I'm looking at Ever Vigilant, then I am just by default also looking at Stick to the Plan.
I think one thing that I think about charisma and Stick to the Plan is inherently these cards alone do nothing. Right? Like, charisma does nothing. Stick to the plan does nothing, more or less, kind of.
Well, because you have to load it. You have to have stuff for it.
It's the cards that go on it. And I think what those two do is they upgrade the power of cards that are in your deck. So for allies, you can have multiple out, like, say, Beat Cops, or a couple of unique allies. And it makes those cards stronger because they can stick around longer, right? Like Jeff was saying, you can have your Arcane Initiate out, fishing for stuff, and then replace her. Or you could keep her out, remove the Doom somehow, or use the upgrade one and take the damage or whatever, and then she can stay out plus another ally. And with Stick to the Plan, whatever cards you put on there, like Ever Vigilant is a strong card. It gets stronger because of Stick to the Plan.
Right.
And in addition to that, if you're one of those people like me who looks into like the mathematics of decks and stuff, it thins your deck as well. So you are more likely, by whatever percentage, 4 or whatever, 4%, I don't know, whatever it is, you are 4% more likely to draw every other card in your deck, just because you'll get through it quicker. Now, that includes your weaknesses. But and we've seen this with, let's see, Parallel Skids did it, Parallel Agnes did it, where they started off with 25 card decks. Right? And like some of the comments I saw where people were like, wow, this feels so much faster, because I'm like, there's just, like, if you were to theoretically cut a deck down to 5 cards, you would always draw the best opening hand, right? Because you know what you're going to draw. Yeah. And you cut a deck down to 10, and you're like, well, I know what's in my deck, and I'm going to draw it quick, right? Like, that little bit of deck thinning from Stick to the Plan makes the cards on Stick to the Plan really good, and makes the rest of the cards in your deck really good. I agree with Jeff, though. Like, charisma, to me, doesn't go in every deck. I do remember, though, a time where I was like, charisma all the time, because ally slots were so good. But I think we've rounded out the card pool enough where, like, there's times where I'm like, oh, I guess I need to put an ally in this deck. Like, I should just pick one, like, and I charisma doesn't even cross my mind.
Well, and even because, like, the way the card pool is now, the allies that at one point you always did pick, like Leo DeLuca for Rogue, and like Milan, even up until recently, I'd say, for Seeker. Like, there are now other options that are better fits for different archetypes. Like, it's not just like every Rogue runs Leo, every Seeker runs Milan. It's like, no, this Seeker might use Mr. Rook. This Seeker might use Witten Green, that sort of thing. Like, there's a wider variety of allies that play stronger to specific archetypes, as opposed to just blanket allies that are like, yeah, I'm good no matter where I am, you know. So
And you can build a deck around a single ally. Like
Oh,
Wit
yeah,
and
yeah,
Green,
yeah.
right? Like
Mhm.
it's not like I felt like in Dunwich, there weren't as many build around allies that early in the game. They
Right.
were just allies with decently good things, like Milan, like Leo,
Mhm.
right? Like who doesn't like money, who doesn't like stat boost, who doesn't like actions. But
Right.
now there's allies where you're like, this is the only ally I care about. Every other ally for this specific build pales in comparison to it.
Yeah.
So why would I even waste my time looking
Right.
at it? And Ian, perfect example with Stick to the Plan, right? Like there's certain decks where I'm like, oh man, I want was it sharpshooter and extra ammo and
Mm.
you know all these
Mhm.
flashy events, and I want them on tap, right? Like Nick, like you've always said with Dynamite, right? You want it once in a game, but when you
Mhm.
need it, you need it.
Yeah.
But there's some other decks like where I'm just like, well, whatever comes out of my deck, I'll deal with it. So
Right.
Yeah, and I think Jeff's point about like overrated, underrated in this game is very true. That it's often more about our own meta of one, like our own kind of development of players. Like when I say that Leo is overrated, like the Leo DeLuca, it's not really a reflection of the general, like what everyone else is doing. It's more about me and the fact that I played him like so much over the course of the first few cycles and then stopped using him as much because there were other options. So
Yeah.
that's not really a statement about his power so much as like the choices I make now as a player versus what I used to do.
Right. Totally.
I think I kind of got my temperature gauge from like just on being on Discord and chatting in like the deck tech channel and like how people are building and looking on Arkham DB and seeing what the top decks are and just being like, wow, every deck has shortcut or like, or a lot of them do, right? And
Wow,
so, like,
every deck has Safina.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah,
Do you?
but I agree.
Quick musing before we move on to our next voicemail. But do you guys think? Because I was just all this talk about stick to the plan. I was like, I wonder if Backpack was a back pedal from Stick to the Plan. I wonder, because I was like, God, my first thought was like, Backpack should have functioned similarly to Stick to the Plan. And then I was like, well, but God, Stick to the Plan is so powerful and it was in use so often, and now we're talking about it as being one of the most, or potentially one of the more overrated cards. So I wonder if Backpack was like designed, I wonder if Backpack's design only could exist in a post Stick to the Plan world. Do you get what I'm saying? Like maybe like MJ saw how Stick to the Plan was being received and was like, well, I want to do something similar, but we'll make it we'll restrict it a bit more.
I think that comes a lot though from it being neutral. Like,
oh sure,
neutral cards should always be below the same quality
right
as class cards because anyone can take them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, also, like Backpack, at least level 0, costs 0 XP, but does cost a body slot. I don't know. I know what you're talking about though. Like, I pick up what you're putting down. Like they're very similar.
Just a thought, like, because I was just like, oh, that'd be cool if Backpack did that, where start of the game you find even just 2 item assets and slap them underneath Backpack, kind of like how Stick to the Plan works. But then I was like, well, maybe that would still be too good. I don't know.
I could see something for, I don't know, like Seeker, something like an exploration pack that maybe starts in play, or like imagine something you could play from your deck before the game began. Like, it's not permanent. It takes up a body slot. It's like Backpack, but you can sort through your deck, find it. It plays like
a tarot card.
Yeah, but you could like grab it out of your deck to start. More powerful than tarot. I don't know. Something like that.
Interesting.
And you can only grab tools or something.
Sure.
But
tool belt. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last one of this episode.
Hello, Mythos Busters. This is Patrick calling in with a pair of themed takes on over/underrated cards. Firstly, gonna disagree with Scott on Shortcut. There are more nuances and uses for it, but for me, a big strength of the card is its floor. If you're going to take a move, if you're taking a move action from the time you drew it to the end of the game, it's similar to just being -1 in deck size, since you can just redraw as that replaced move action. As for my underrated cards, I'm going to shout out to the core set neutral skills. Unexpected Courage is great at plugging holes in your icon arrays and the rest, so long as you can reliably commit them, i.e. Overpower in a fight-based killer, Perception in an int-based clover, Guts in a purple deck. All help cycle your deck towards your best cards. Thanks for the thought exercise, and have a good one.
This is a man after my own heart.
I really like this one, because I feel like I've had a weird relationship with the neutral skill suite from the core set.
Mm-hmm.
I used them a lot originally, obviously, because we had no other choice. And then as more and more class-specific skills came out, I pared them down, until it was literally just like, all right, 1 or 2 Unexpected Courages in every deck. And then I started to slowly work my way back to them, and it started with Guts, because I realized I was failing too many will tests. So I was like, okay, we'll put Guts in there, But now I don't even do that. Now I'm literally like, who am I? I'm Guardian, I'm running high combat, throw Overpower in there, get that card draw. Who am I? Seeker, throw Perception in there, get that card draw. Like, I'm not going to short my weaknesses, I'm going to keep building up my strengths, man. And I get a card out of the deal.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Nick. Pretty much ditto everything you said. Yeah. I reached a point where I was not using them at all and saying like, oh, we have all these other skills that do cooler stuff. And I've come right back around to using them more. But yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of like, let's just use the ones that I know I'm going to be doing fight actions with this gate or investigate and get that card draw.
You know, it's very similar to what I was saying about stick to the plan and the numbers. And the it's just, it's one less card in your deck. Yep. Means every other card is better, right? And plus it helps you pass a test. And I totally went through the same thing, right? I'm like, deductions out there, like, why would I ever, like, upgrade deduction? Why would I ever use perception again? Upgrade vicious blow. Why would I ever use overpower again? And it's like, por que no los dos?
Yeah.
Because, that overpower makes your vicious blow stronger because you can find your vicious blow sooner and make sure it lands as well. I have to admit, his take also on Shortcut has slightly swayed me because he's right. Anytime you would draw it and take a move action until the end of the game, you could play Shortcut and draw a card for the same action cost, right? Like, it's just holy crap. Okay,
Scott, you plant your flag so defiantly, and you're like, I'm gonna die on this hill.
Yeah.
But then it honestly, it's not that it doesn't take much, but it just takes the right combination of words for you to then pick your flag up, march to the other hill, and plant it there. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, he knew how to speak your language exactly.
Well, wow. I had never thought of Shortcut that way, and that
as just card draw.
Yeah, like it just deck thinning, right? Like it's not. It just you replace a move action. With, wow. So
you know what? Premonition too.
Well, no, because no.
Yeah, it's just every card you play thins your deck. So every card, backpack is just deck thinning, even if it doesn't pull anything.
No, because premonition doesn't replace an action, right? Like Shortcut. If you have 3 actions and you're gonna move, draw, you could shortcut, move, draw.
Yeah.
And now you have a free action at the end, which you could then use to draw, right?
Yeah.
So
I get you.
Yeah. Wow, okay. That I still think oh god, that may have changed my mind.
Well, while you are wrestling with this existential crisis you find yourself in, Ian, do you want to go over our...
I see no one defended Safina, by the way.
I was gonna ask. I was gonna be like,
happened?
Is she really overrated? Like, of all the investigators I hear about, she's got to be bottom of the list. But then again, the only people I talk to are you guys. So,
yeah, I think
I'm gonna record a voicemail.
Hey guys, it's Ian here. And let me be clear, and I keep on trying to mention this. I'm not saying Safina's bad. I just think a lot of people think she's like a 9 or 10 out of 10. I think she's like a 7 or an 8. 7 or an 8.
Sure.
In the power.
You think she's closer to average?
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
She's still a little bit over.
I mean, a 7 on 10 is average. That's a C. You know what I mean?
Well, I think 5 out of 10 is average, isn't it?
You think a failing grade is average?
Well, no, but
It's
like
50%.
It's half.
No, I would agree that she's closer to average than she is to, you know, like in the crosshairs of the taboo list.
Mm-hmm. But there's some big fans out there.
Sure.
And so yeah, I don't know. Neither here nor there. So
right. All right.
Bring
Ian,
on the other
patron
voicemails.
stuff.
All right, patron stuff. First off, thanks to our board members. That's Chris B, Chris H, and Chris M, our conglomeration of Chris's. Morton, Jared, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Dave, Abilio, Jesse, Chad, and Robert. Thanks so much for your support of the podcast. Special shout out to a random patron this time around goes to Jason Tucker. Thanks, Jason, for supporting us as well. We already talked about our special Pride merch, so just a reminder to go check that out and the rest of our merch on mythosmerch.com. And our final bit of patron business, we do have a new employee here in the offices. Dean Windemuller, I believe is how that's pronounced. You can let me know if not. Dean is going to be taking on a new position that we had to add because of an expedition that's starting soon. Dean is going to be the Mountain of Madness Climbing Safety Officer. So as we're scaling those mountains in Antarctica, Dean is going to be in charge of safety. So if anyone dies on the job, it's Dean's fault.
Now I need someone taking police badge, the card, and editing Dean's face on it and putting like safety officer badge.
Yep.
No pressure, Dean.
You can discard it to take 2 climbing actions.
The arrows are just angled upwards at a 45-degree angle.
What if there was climbing an edge of the earth, but it's just like you're stacking the chaos tokens and it's like Jenga if it falls down?
Oh, I thought you meant like it's like consecutive skill tests where you stack the tokens on top of each other, but if one of them fails, you have to put all of them back in the bag or something. Like, but I like yours better.
That would actually be a rational game mechanic.
That would, but I like the dexterity test better. I definitely like build a house of cards as your, and then ascend it. Oh, that'd be fun. Speaking of fun, we got a new parallel investigator. One might say the parallel investigator, the one that everybody's been waiting for.
Wendy?
Yeah. No, who? Who's that? I'm not familiar with that character. Is that a novella that I don't have? No. Parallel Roland was released just a little bit ago, just a few days ago. And his scenario is by the book, which sounds interesting and sounds very Roland. I gotta say, I did theory craft, what parallel Rolands could do. Like, if I were designing a parallel Roland, what would he do? I did not land on giving him, 5 extra signatures. Or however many. There's a lot of them. I did not go that far with it, but I'm glad that MJ and Jeremy did, because this seems really fun. I'm just going to jump into it. Yeah. Roland, Parallel Roland, the Fed, is rocking 3 will, 3 intellect, 4 combat, and 2 agility. He has the agency and detective traits still, and his game text reads, at deck creation, choose 3 different directive assets to add to your deck. And then free action, fast action, flip a directive asset face down, ignoring its permanent keyword. Limit once per game. Elder Sign effect, +2. Choose a directive asset. You may ignore its regulation ability this round. And 9 health and 5 sanity still. So obviously it's hard to judge this Roland without looking at the directives, but they're pretty cool. I'm going to go over his deck building too real quick here. 30 cards still, Guardian levels 0 through 3. So
no shotgun.
Shotgun's gone. So I think I will never use this version of Roland. We'll see.
Just use the regular backside. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Print a copy out just to shred it.
Insight cards level 0 through 3, which I think is pretty cool, and tactic cards level 0 through 3. Let's be honest, he could already take most of those. And then neutral cards 0 through 5, and then everything else is... Oh no, bonus experience. You begin the campaign with 5 additional experience. Does not affect the number of weaknesses you must take in standalone mode. So he's got a little Mateo going on. He got a little Mateo in him. Cool. I mean, I like the idea. Here's the question, though. Other than losing the text on the directives, when you flip it face down... Is there anything else that can, like, get rid of it from play? There's nothing that targets face-down cards in your play area, is there?
I don't think so.
So they're not, like, suddenly in trouble of being lost to the encounter deck, as far as I know. That's immediately what my brain thinks of, is like, oh, what are the other interactions? But let's get to these directives, because there's a number of them, and like I said, it's hard to judge Roland without them. So, Scott, can you do your due diligence?
Is it the red tape one?
It's due diligence. It's directive due diligence. That's literally its name.
I don't see it.
You don't?
It should be in the show notes just below Roland at the bottom. Yeah.
Look how prepared I am. All right. Due diligence. Roland Banks deck only. It's an asset. It's permanent. Regulation. You cannot fight more than twice each round. And then fast trigger. During a skill test, while investigating, evading, or parlaying, exhaust this directive. You get +2 skill value for this test for each enemy engaged with you.
Interesting.
So
engage with you. Oh, I guess with handcuffs. Hey.
Yeah. Drag around a free
Speaking of handcuffs. Yeah.
In solo, other than very specific situations, hopefully you're not having to fight more than twice per turn. I guess it all depends on your build, and being cut out of those high-end weapons is going to make flipping this face down a little more enticing, because you're losing that easy access to damage output. But still, like, you cannot fight more than twice per turn. That doesn't seem so terrible to me in solo. I would never run this in multiplayer, I don't think.
I think, if you're playing like Flexi Roland,
yeah,
maybe you could run this in multiplayer.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Flexi, yeah. I feel like this one is really screaming out for handcuffs, because how often are you going to be investigating while engaged with an enemy? I mean, you can, but it's just not going to be a main thing unless you're planning on soaking up a ton of opportunity attacks. It does make you a bit more evadey, which is nice, like giving you another tool in your...
Yeah.
You would say that, Ian.
Remember, he has 2 agility. Yep. And I know handcuffs help with that, but that, I mean, then he can evade twice. Like, okay. All right, well then, Ian, you want to read red tape for us?
Yep, I'll cut through the red tape here. So this is red tape. Again, Roland Banks deck only permanent. Regulation, you cannot play more than 2 cards each round. Reaction, when you play an insight or tactic event, exhaust this directive, that event gains fast.
Okay.
Yeah, that I mean, not being able to play more than 2 cards each round, that doesn't seem, again, too terrible. There's not a lot of turns where you're going to be playing more than 2 cards. Although, like, the fact that you can play an insight or tactic event and it gains fast, that is going to count as one of your 2 cards. But But still, that's a pretty strong ability, though, giving it fast. Like, we have, pretty expensive cards that do that, and this is just a permanent that you get at all times.
Yeah, Network in chat brings this up, and this was the first thing I thought of when I read it. Can't run Ever Vigilant in this build with this directive. Because that Ever Vigilant says, play those cards, not put them into play. So
yeah, it's the quantity of cards essentially that you play.
you could ever vigilant your first card out, and then you're done. Scott, if I play an event that says, like a few Guardian events do, play only as your first action, can I still make it fast with this?
I would, yeah.
I would say
I would
my
think
brain
so.
says yes. That like as long as like because that card is only checking the number of actions that have been spent for the turn.
That's kind of how, like, you're asking if you could basically play Scene of the Crime twice. Once
Right.
as fast, once as another time. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know when you play. I would say yes. Because
Right.
when happens before you actually play it, so you're not actually taking it as your first action.
Sure.
Although, is Scene of the Crime required to be an action? I guess
That to me is the question.
That's, yeah. So I don't know.
We'll file that one away for future research.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I will try it at my table. And if I'm able to get Scene of the Crime into my discard pile and resolve its effects, then I know it works. So, we'll see. That's a joke, because of course it's going to work, because I'm the one putting
FFG
it
sirens in the background.
All right, the next one is Consult Experts. Roland Banks deck only permanent. Regulation. You cannot voluntarily assign damage or horror to ally assets. Well, there goes your soak, Ian. However, you have one additional ally asset. This one, I think this one's really cool. I think it's interesting because, like you said, yeah, a lot of times, especially with Roland, who naturally has access to Seeker, and Seeker allies naturally have high sanity and, well, high for an ally, and low health, it's very easy to be like, oh, 2 horror, I'll just slap it on, this whoever, or 1 horror, I'll just put a horror on Malison, or I'll put a horror on this art student, and then pop him back to hand, or just kill him, or whatever. And this prevents you from doing that, but it lets you get more allies out. I like this one. I like it.
It's kind of rough because Roland has that 5 sanity. That means you're going to have to get your soak somewhere else, which there's a lot more options now in Guardian than there used to be.
Right.
And Network pointing out in chat too, like, Guard Dog becomes useless. What I thought was also Beat Cop, right? Oh, assign damage. Okay, so Beat Cop still works.
So any ally that damages itself from its own ability, you can still do.
Guard Dog,
but
though,
Guard Dog, that one stings because Guard Dog is MVP.
It turns out a Guard Dog's not a good expert to consult.
Ruh-roh, Raggy.
All right, Scott, do you want to seek the truth?
I do. So Seek the Truth, another directive. Roland Banks deck only, permanent. Blah, blah. Regulation. While your location has 1 or more clues, you cannot commit cards to skill test unless you have discovered a clue this round. Reaction. After you discover a clue, if an enemy is at your location, exhaust this directive. Draw 1 card.
I mean, it's not difficult. Okay, so if you're running parallel Roland deck building, then you lose access to just blanket Seeker inclusion. And the trade-off is that you get higher insight. There's a lot of stuff that can just grab clues easily, both in Guardian and in Seeker, and specifically in insight events. So this one doesn't feel as limiting to me, but at the same time, I'm sure I'll still run into those situations where I need to commit a card, but there's no clues in my location, or or I don't have something to easily grab a clue, that sort of thing.
This immediately springs to mind Working a Hunch.
Oh yeah.
Which is Insight.
Mm-hmm.
Scene of the Crime, which you can take, which doesn't cause attack of opportunity.
Yep.
So those 2 just turn into cantrips.
Right.
Where you play and you draw a card. So I could see that.
Yeah, this also seems like more handcuff fodder again. That if you just have that enemy with you at all times, you're just gonna draw a card each time you discover a clue. Obviously, it exhausts it once per turn, but that's still pretty strong. So And then I can almost imagine like handcuffs, and you have God, I'm blanking on her name. The ally that damages an enemy when you discover a clue.
Alice Luxley.
Yeah, Luxley. You got handcuffs going. So every time you discover a clue, you're drawing a card and damaging an enemy that's there. Or, forget Luxley. If you just have handcuffs going and you have the other directive, suddenly you're drawing a card. You're being able to get +2 on a test.
Mm-hmm. Or if there's like multiple enemies, you kill one, evidence, you get that clue, you draw the card, and now you can commit to your next fight.
Yeah. Or what's the new one from Nathaniel Cho? The lesson learned. Just let an enemy hit you, grab 2 clues. Yeah. Now you're golden.
Or you draw a card, and then you have the directive to play that event you just drew for fast. And there just seems like a lot of combo potential with this parallel rolling so far.
The more I started thinking about Roland and this, like reading through the article and reading through the cards and looking at the scenario, I was like, man, this is such a Jeremy design. Like, it's
fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's just a super technical player, right? Like from all those competitive card games, like I knew him from Conquest and a few others. Like he is just so sound in the tight mechanics of a game and just how to just eke out the smallest of advantages and just crank those advantages to 10. Like this is such a a him design.
Also,
yeah, for sure.
As a quick aside, this is me bringing up the artwork again, but in this picture, Roland is holding a shotgun. What the heck? What the heck? All right. Scott, do you want to leave us with no doubt?
Sure. Leave no doubt. Rolling back to the permanent regulation. You cannot move more than twice each round. Ooh, shortcut. In addition, the payoff for that is you get +3 sanity.
I mean,
ooh, there we go.
That's very nice.
Speaking of lack of soaks, there we go.
How often are you moving 3 times per round? That's pretty rare.
That's like often. A late game, oh crap, I'm on the other side of the map from the resign location sort of thing. Like, I don't foresee, or, I mean, Innsmouth also has some pretty sprawling maps as well. So if you stay behind to take care of some enemies and then have to catch up to the other investigators. So you're right, I don't see this one as being too big of an issue. I think this is going to be one of those, because you pick 3 directives. I think a lot of people are going to pick this one because this is huge. Also, Scott...
And if you do...
I was just going to say... Shortcut counts as one of your moves, was all I was going to say.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, that is... I do appreciate how carefully worded these are, like we saw with the playing cards, and this is not move actions, it's moves, so anything else like safeguard is going to count. But the good thing is we talked initially at his front side, like he has that free trigger to flip one of these cards over at some point, and like wondering how that would be useful. This would be a case like maybe there is a late game like, oh crap, I really need to move across the board 3 times, then you just flip this thing, and hopefully you're not above your 5 sanity at that
That's
point,
what I was going to say, is that this is one you're probably never going to flip, because like you're taking it so that you can stack the horror, so that you can put extra horror on them. So if at any point you're actually using this, you then cannot flip it, because once you do, you're done. Like that's it. Like even if you're just using it like +1, if you have 6 horror on them, then this thing cannot flip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is like, yeah, I foresee this one being in a lot of decks just as like an auto. Like, yep, I'm taking this one, get that +3 sanity, and yeah, I've only moved twice, so what? Who cares?
Jeff mentions in chat, too, this blocks scenario cards from moving you, too, making some things weird.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's some weird stuff there. So.
You just stop.
Now, is
scenarios.
if something's trying to move you, you're just an immovable wall.
And the thing is, cannot is absolute. right? In FFG games, like cannot means no. So.
Yeah, so if there's a scenario where like you move twice and then the scenario's like changes the map and moves you somewhere, then
yeah, well,
stuck in a void or something.
If the scenario specifically clears the location you're on,
exactly,
and then puts you on a new location, I don't think that counts as moving. It
depends on how it's worded. It's probably I would have to check all the instances. It's probably not moved. It's probably not worded as move. I'm guessing it's probably like,
I think it is like move all investigators there to this location, right?
I don't think
just
so.
Goes
I think
into
it's
a
just,
void.
I'm trying to think because I can picture the text in my head. I can't think of which scenario it is, but where it removes your current location from the game, and then in parentheses it says the investigators are not defeated or whatever, you know. Because then I guess I don't know.
Well, what's it called? Lost in Time and Space, right?
Oh, yes, that one does move you, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess those ones you can take horror or something to stick around. God, it's been a long time since I played
I haven't played that one forever. Scott, do you want to read the new... Wait, no, Scott just did that one.
I read 2 in a row.
Yeah, Ian, do you want to read the new 38 special?
Sure. So this is a special card here. Roland's 38 special, the advanced form. 3 cost, intellect, combat, agility, wild icons, item, weapon, firearm. Has 4 ammo. As an action, spend 1 ammo, fight. You get +2 combat for this attack. If there are 1 or more clues on your location, you get +4 combat instead. This attack deals +1 damage. If this attack defeats an enemy and there are no clues on your location, place 1 ammo on Roland's 38 special.
It's just better in every way.
Yeah, you actually get a base combat boost even if there are no clues on your location.
Yeah, it's no longer just another 45 automatic. Now it higher fight. Even higher if there are clues, just like the other one. You still get the damage no matter what, and then, hey, you could maybe you can fish the bullet back. It's easy to find if there's no clues hanging around.
Yeah, that refill ability, and if you are playing with the kind of 0-3 Guardian restriction, then you don't have access to the higher weapons too, so this makes it more appealing as well.
Right.
Did Roland's original gun have 4 ammo, or was it 3?
Yes. No, it was 4.
It was 4? Okay. It's been a long time since I played Roland.
Because it's the exact same as it's the exact same as a 45, except for it has the if there's a clue on your location caveat. Yeah. Well, I'll round us out with cover up. The advanced cover up, Revelation, put cover up into play in your threat area with 4 clues on it. And then reaction, when you would discover 1 or more clues at your location, discard that many clues from cover up instead. Forced, when the game ends, if there are any clues on cover-up, you suffer 1 mental trauma. Okay. I mean, much like the gun, it's the same thing, but bigger.
Yep.
Let's just pump that number up by 1.
4 instead of 3.
I first thought that this would do something with your face-down directives. But then I saw it didn't, and I was like, I guess I'm okay with that, because then it's not discouraging you even more from flipping them face down, you know, more so than they do already from losing whatever bonuses they give you. So well, I
think the thing is too, you can use parallel back Roland and regular front Roland, and then you wouldn't get the directives.
Oh right. Oh right? Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
yeah,
you're
right. Didn't think about that.
I think cover up just always sucks, and it's still vulnerable to that thing of if it pops up at the end, you're basically screwed. So
yeah,
I'm not sure how much the 3 to 4 matters in the grand scheme. It's just kind of always terrible, but I don't know.
I kind of wish that they changed the mental trauma to something else, like you lose experience or you get fewer experience or something like that. Because God. That mental trauma, like if
I feel like that one directive is always going to get a lot of play to get that +3 sanity.
That's what I mean. Like if after my first game, if I'm not running Leave No Doubt and then I get a mental trauma from cover up, I am now running Leave No Doubt for the rest of the campaign. Ugh.
I am going to throw a quick rules PSA in here because I've seen this question asked often or this mistake made. Because cover up is a replacement effect, basically when you would discover one of our clues at your location, if you have cover up and you just want to clear it, you cannot investigate an empty location.
Right.
There has to be a clue
because there's no
there.
clues to discover. Yep.
Yeah. So you can't just sit at like a Shroud 0 and just investigate to get rid of it. So.
That's what makes it so terrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah, I think looking at this whole package, I think we talked a little bit about how cool the mechanics are, and this makes me excited just seeing how far they're gonna go with the parallel stuff, because Daisy and Skids were cool, and they kind of breathe new life into those investigators. But this is I think you were saying, Nick, I did not expect to see like 5 different cards that were gonna these directives, and it just shows that not that I ever think they would be phoning it in, but they're just really being creative with these parallel investigators,
Right.
But the other thing I really like is not just the mechanics but the story to it, because Roland always had this thing of this in his story, like he's by the book, he doesn't want to break the rules, but that wasn't really reflected in the mechanics anywhere. But with these directives, I think it really does tell a very cool story of like there are certain regulations that he has to follow. But of course, he might choose a certain one to ignore and flip it over at some point. So I don't know. It tells a cool story, I think.
It really does. Yeah, that's awesome. And not only that, but the scenario by the book is an altered version of Midnight Masks. So it gives us all a reason to go back and play one of our favorite early scenarios from the early life of Arkham Horror. Midnight Masks continues to be one of the ones that I enjoy the most, even at this point in the game's life where it feels not formulaic, but like not like I know how to beat it, because I still fail it from time to time, but it feels the most like Arkham Horror, big air quotes around that, you know what I mean? So it's fun to go back to that with Roland.
And it mentions in the article, too, that Jeremy really likes the push your luck or high score scenarios, as he calls them, where you see how well you can do. And this one changes it from 6 cultists to 10, but they work completely differently.
Right.
And that's super cool. Like, he wanted, now you have a scale of 1 to 10 instead of 1 to 6. So.
Yeah, very fun.
Can I share with you guys something about Parallel Roland that I think this just speaks to... So Maxine has been on the show a couple times and mentioned something along the lines of, when people are like, oh, why did, God, what was it? The Necronomicon get printed and you could sleight of hand it with Mandy and then like use it a bunch with knowledge as power and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she basically explains, and totally right, and even like big, huge game studios like Magic the Gathering have said this, like the second a card hits the player's hands, it is seen by and played 1,000 times more than all the playtesters combined in a single day, right? Like if they just find stuff. So Parallel Roland starts with 5 XP. Let's take him into the what's called the first scenario of Carcosa, Curtain Call.
Yep.
If that scenario goes to its end, you take 100 horror, right? So, and it says, cannot be prevented. Okay? So, what you're going to take is Enchanted Armor, which is the 2 XP, 1 cost. I'm just going to read it out. Guardian Asset. Okay? So, you put it into play at your location. It's the one that has the health and the sanity as an asterisk. And it's forced after any damage or horror is placed in Enchanted Armor. The owner of Enchanted Armor tests Willpower X, where X is the total number of damage or horror on it. If the test fails, you discard it, right? But if you pass, you just put it on armor. Okay? Now, you also need a Favor of the Sun to make sure this happens, okay? Which is a 1 XP. That's where you can seal up to 3 Bless.
Yeah.
And then, discard them. And then for your final 2 XP, you use the card that's going to make Maxine roll over in her grave. Versatile. And you versatile in the skill Beloved, which is a survivor skill that says, If a blessed token is revealed during this test, you may remove Beloved from the game to replace that token's effects with the following. You automatically succeed.
Yes.
Do not reveal another thing. So, curtain call ends. You have the armor out. You have a Favor of the Sun with at least one blessed token on it. And it goes to deal 100 horror to you. You place it on the armor. You test 100 willpower test. Use Beloved. Use the bless off Favor of the Sun. You pass the test. Now what?
Jesus Christ. I love it. I love it.
So,
Entering the void again.
yeah, and like, I mean, just Versatile is just the card that just, it's the gift that keeps on giving, man. Oh boy. Anyways. So, yeah. Anyways, I saw that and I thought it was hilarious, so I figured I'd share it on here. I think it was off Reddit. I really apologize for whoever thought of it. I can't remember who it was. So
sure. All right. Well, with that, why don't we? Are there any other rules highlights that you have for us, Scott?
No, that's pretty much it. That's how you break
Cool.
the game.
I mean, that's the best one so far, I think.
Yeah.
Other than I still think the Astounding Revelation Stick to the Plan one is really fun. But
yeah, that's a good one.
So let's move into Light in the Fog, our discussion of that at an hour 20, so not bad. We're going to talk about the player cards first. So spoiler incoming, but only if you're concerned about player cards. We'll be spoiling the scenario shortly thereafter. And I mean, since I'll just go ahead and start with a card I didn't expect to see in Guardian, but level 2 Holy Rosary. That's a Guardian asset to experience 2 resource cost, will, and agility icons, item, charm, and blessed traded. You get +1 will and reaction after you succeed at a will test on a treachery. Exhaust Holy Rosary, add 2 blessed tokens to the chaos bag. Gives you 0 health, but 2 sanity, and it takes up your accessory slot. I'm sure that's fine.
Seems good, especially in Sister Mary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, anyone who can take this, right? Like, I guess you probably want to play it in someone who's high willpower so that you're actually passing tests in order to get the real benefit.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I used it in Bless Mateo. Obviously, that's
Sure.
good in that scenario. So obviously it's good for like the blessed investigators who want to do stuff with blessed tokens and have high willpower. I guess the question is more for those who don't, like just your standard Guardian. Would you take this or not is kind of the bigger question for me. A passive +1 will for 2 costs isn't bad with a sanity soak in Guardian. Right. With a lot of Guardians who are kind of average willpower, not necessarily low, but not necessarily high, unless you're talking about people like Zoe. So I think on those terms, I might look at it with the blessed tokens as kind of a nice kicker. But
I hadn't considered this in my Zoe deck. I've only played this in Sister Mary, but I think this might. I mean, like, you're going to be tanking treacheries at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well grab a boost. Yeah.
No Guardian has will lower than 3. Every Guardian has 3 or 4 willpower. I did not realize that. Because I was going to say, I think that if you have will as low as 3, that willpower boost is pretty good. Even if it's just a +1, getting from 3 to 4 can make a difference.
Yep.
I was just surprised to find that out, and that's a nice little factoid. See that everybody has 3 or higher.
I think the jump from 4 to 5 is more valuable.
Oh, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would totally agree.
At least on standard.
But, like, if there was a Guardian with a 2 or a 1 willpower, like, let's say, for instance, Finn could take this. I wouldn't consider it for Finn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's something that you can consider for pretty much every Guardian, but it's really going to shine in only a few builds. A couple builds, I should say.
And I think it's going to shine, like, in order for it to be really worth it, I think you have to be kind of dabbling with Bless play.
Totally.
In some way, right? Like, not just adding 2 blessed tokens to the chaos bag. You need to be doing something with those blessed tokens for it to...
Right.
Yeah.
Because even with 9 or 10 blessed tokens in the bag, they don't come up as often as you want them to. So just doing 2, there's a chance you could never see them for the whole scenario. So, Ian, you want to read Shield of Faith for us?
I do. Shield of Faith is a 2-cost, level 2 asset, 2 will icons, spell, and bless traits. Hello, Mateo. Seal up to 5 bless tokens. If Shield of Faith has no token sealed on it, discard it. Reaction: when an enemy attacks an investigator at your location, exhaust Shield of Faith and release a chaos token sealed here. Cancel that attack. It does take up the arcane slot, so possibly sad face Mateo on that part.
Yeah, the one investigator you listed is the one that this is actually in hot water for contesting that arcane slot.
Yeah.
Marie could also take this, correct? Because she can take spell.
Yeah, I believe. Is she spell or is she occult?
I always get her deck building and Akachi's mixed up.
Akachi is occult.
Oh,
and charges, right?
Yeah, Akachi's charges for sure.
And occult, I believe.
So she can't. I don't know.
Oh,
so one of them can take it. Tell us.
Marie is occult.
Yeah,
and Akachi is charges. That's it. No one actually take. Yeah, okay.
None of them are spells.
God.
So no.
In this game. It's funny. When I think of charges, when I think of Marie, I'm like spell. Yeah. Anyways. That's it. Parallel Agnes is spell and occult.
Right
okay.
There it is. Yeah. So
Parallel Agnes. Okay.
Yeah.
This is fun. It's a multi-use dodge. Like you were talking earlier, Scott, about how premonition is good, but you shy away from it as being an auto-include because it's temporary. I mean, well, dodge is similar, not as powerful, I would argue, as premonition, but it's a temporary fix. I don't have an answer for this enemy now. I wasn't able to defeat it. I can avoid its attack, once. This lets you do it multiple times as long as you're filling the bag with blessed tokens. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I much like Holy Rosary, I mean, there's a couple of builds that are going to like this, but otherwise, I don't think you really look at it.
I don't know, though. I think I could see this as if you're running, like, Team Bless, right? Like, your table's running Bless, and let's say Mateo just is not running much or any enemy management, and he could just toss this in the deck and play it when there's enough Bless tokens. Like, everyone's contributing a bit of Bless, and then Mateo takes 5 of them just to be like, okay, now you guys know I can handle myself at this end of the table for a couple attacks if need be.
Sure.
I don't know. It's like it's a protective incantation kind of thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't taken this one yet, even in kind of my heavy bless builds, and I think it's one of those things where in theory, like, reusable is better than one use events, and it is for certain things, but I almost feel like I might be happier with just like a couple copies of dodge or another kind of enemy canceling effect, because I'm not sure how many times I'm going to want to cancel an attack. If I'm having to do it that much, it's probably because something has gone terribly wrong, or I'm really leaning into some kind of tanky, like, staying engaged with enemies type build. So yeah, I think I might need to experiment with it more, but at first glance, I haven't seen like a good reason to take it yet. I'm sure there's builds, particularly in multiplayer, like Scott's talking about, that maybe there's some play there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Azathoth, when we were playing TCU Azathoth, you can cancel the attack, but you can't... What are the rules on Azathoth? Like, can this stop Azathoth?
I forget what Azathoth
I'm going to find
out. With this one, the thing that gets me is the amount of setup that's required for this one. You're spending 2 experience on it, you're spending 2 resources in action to play it, It doesn't come with charges. It doesn't come preloaded. You also have to be devoting card space to bless to fill up the bag and be able to charge this. And then the question is, how many do you seal on it? Do you play this when there's only 2 bless tokens in the bag? And do you seal both of those? Do you wait for the full 5? If there's 6 or 7 tokens in the bag, do you take all 5? Like that, those are interesting decisions.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that a card is making me make those decisions, but I think I'm with Ian where I look at this and I go, God, the only setup dodge asks of me is that I'm engaged with an enemy. That's it. And that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And to kind of go off of what Jeff in our chat said, Jeff said, but soaking 1 attack around is just not enough to manage even 1 enemy. You actually have to deal with it, and this card doesn't. And that's where dodge really shines, is dodge is... You only ever really see dodge used, at least I only ever really see it used, when I have to do something else that is super imperative. I have to do it now before the agenda flips, or now to get into this certain location, and I have an enemy engaged with me. Whereas Shield of Faith, like, yeah, you can do that, but it's less reactive and more of just like you're just slapping a big defense in front of you. And so then I think it just doesn't feel as worth it to me. But
so I checked on Azathoth. You can block Azathoth's attacks with this. So Azathoth says it is immune to all player card effects and investigator actions, cannot be defeated. But dodge can, because you're canceling the attack, you're not doing anything to Azathoth, you're doing it to the attack. So this might be a good tech card for before the Black Throne, because there is that chaos token that just like -5 if you fail, Azathoth attacks you. Right. And just having this in your back pocket, because he hits for like 3 and 3 or something. Mm-hmm. Like it's...
Sure.
Yeah, 3 and 3.
Yeah, a late campaign against the big boss, I can see it being useful then. Really quick, Ian, I know you got a thought, but Mega Wasabi in chat asks if it can cancel multiple attacks. Like with Massive, it cannot, because it has to exhaust. So it's when it attacks an investigator. So you have to exhaust it, and then you basically, if it's a massive enemy, you pick the investigator that you're blocking, essentially.
I think they're asking, though, can it cancel the attack of a massive enemy? Like, so I guess it bears to explain that a massive enemy doesn't attack everyone all at once. It attacks each investigator individually, individual attacks, like starting off with lead investigator in that order. So it's individual attacks, but it just attacks everyone. It's not one big attack that hits everyone at the same time.
Right.
Is the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you might be onto something, Scott, with the idea of having this like a late campaign tech card right before the final scenario of the campaign, whether that's Azathoth. Usually final scenarios have some kind of big boss enemy that attacks pretty hard, so being able to cancel those attacks would be pretty useful. So I think in those cases, then I could see maybe taking it as a late campaign. And also, if you are Guardian, like retaliate is a thing when you're attacking retaliate enemies, and the autofail token is a thing. Like if you're fighting something that has retaliate like 2 or 3 damage and horror hitting you back, then this might be able to save you on those cases.
Yeah,
right.
But I do think this is more of a tech card than like, oh, I gotta grab it right away type of card.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Totally. Mm-hmm. I think the setup alone is forcing it into that tech position. All right, Scott, do you want to read Faye for us?
I do. So Faye is
I know you like your eyeball stuff.
Oh god, I can't even look at it. I'm reading the Arkham DB, the left side of it. I can't look at the image. So Faye is a 1 XP seeker skill. It has a willpower and 2 wild icons. It's innate and cursed, and it reads, if a cursed token is revealed during the skill test, you may return Faye to your hand when this test ends.
Yellow Silas.
Yeah, I kind of like this, like, because like seekers like to play with those curse tokens, and what this basically does is on anything besides a willpower test, it basically negates a curse token.
Yes,
and then comes back to your hand. On a willpower, it gives you +1. Seems neat. I think like I guess my whole thing is like, is the full Seeker Curse play worth it? But
Hard to say.
But this card is definitely Tool in that. I think if I was doing
Sure.
that, I would certainly take this card.
When
Because
do
it goes
you
back to your hand, pass or fail. So
when do you commit this? Like, do you commit this when you're low and there's a lot of curses in the bag? Or do you commit this when you're high and you need to make sure you pass regardless of whether or not you draw curses?
I think the second.
Okay.
When
You don't
when
so
need
you
to
don't
make it
commit this
happen.
if you're like one over, you know.
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I
That's where it's tough for me, because then that's a
Yeah.
2 to 3 icon card that you're saving for when you're already in a good spot, and it's just a crucial test.
like Premonition.
No.
'Cause it's just helping you secure a test.
But here's the thing. Premonition would tell you if this is worth playing or not.
It would. I don't know.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this is mostly a kind of cursed suite approach where you know you're rocking like a bunch of curse tokens at all times in the bag, and so this is essentially countering one of those curse tokens. Otherwise, I don't imagine using it much in other situations. I do think it's interesting where they pulled the quote for this card from good old William Shakespeare. I never noticed that before, actually.
That's like the second or third, and maybe even more, that we've gotten from a Shakespeare thing.
Yeah, I wonder, is it just based on... I guess we'll have to ask MJ one day when she's on the show. What determines when Shakespeare gets pulled? Is it the card title or what?
All right, our next one is Guided by the Unseen, which is a level 3 Seeker asset. It costs 2 resources. It's willpower and intellect icon, ritual traded, uses 4 secrets. Fast triggered action. I always want to say free action. Fast triggered action. During a skill test at your location, the performing investigator may search the top 3 cards of their deck for a card that can be committed to this test. You may spend 1 secret to commit that card. Shuffle the performing investigator's deck. Takes up an arcane slot. So this is what? This is weaker ? Practice makes perfect?
This is so as written, it is one of the strongest cards in the game.
What?
So here's the issue, and MJ has already addressed this. I guess that there's going to be a errata to this card. So here we go, Nick. Okay, you're at my
Here we go.
location, right?
I am. Mm-hmm.
You have a 20 card deck. Okay,
Yeah, sounds like me.
so all right, so fast trigger. Search top 3 cards of your deck for a card that you want committed to this test.
Okay.
Okay, you don't find anything, or you don't find the card you want.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to spend the time.
I see it.
Shuffle.
I see what you're talking about.
Search 3 again. Shuffle. Search 3 again. Shuffle. Search 3 again. Shuffle. Oh, you finally found the one card you want? I'll pay the charge then.
I didn't even catch that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So it sounds like it.
So what's the errata? You spend the charge first, or there's a limit on it?
Well, the errata has not been
Oh,
said.
I see.
It's just like, we know this is a problem.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have hypothesized once per turn. They've hypothesized you spend the charge first, exhausting it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exhausting seems like that'd be the easiest one to just slap on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or spend a charge, honestly.
Or spend a charge.
Make it, yeah.
If it wasn't so full of text, I would say that it should be like, if you draw a weakness, then remove Guided by the Unseen from the game.
Yeah. Spending the charge beforehand actually might be bad.
Oh, really?
Make
it bad?
Well, yeah, I think it just...
Oh,
wouldn't be
yeah,
good.
because you're using a charge. I get you.
Yeah, and then you just like, if you whiff 3 times, like, well, this is crap, right?
Fuck this card. Otherwise, yeah, it's like I said, ignoring the exploit, it does just seem like a not quite as strong practice makes perfect. It's stronger in that you can search for any skill, not just practice skills.
Any card.
Oh my god, you're right. Not just skills, just cards in general.
Mm-hmm.
That actually, I really like that.
Yeah.
You're almost guaranteed to get it to go off then.
Yeah, and immediately, like, you think of Mandy. You know, digging 6 instead of 3. Like, I feel like this is a Mandy card. I'm not
totally.
sure how much I would take this in anyone else.
Sure.
Unless you're playing a really high skill pack.
Amanda? Would you take this in Amanda?
Yeah, I take it Amanda. Yeah, Amanda and
Min?
Oh, Min.
Lord
Bad
Batboy
Boy
brings up in
Min.
chat. I love Min. This would be great in
Yeah.
Min.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is we talked about the power of like thinning your deck and just the ability to you're committing from your deck instead of your hand essentially. So you're each time you're thinning out, essentially 4 cards if we're talking about 4 secrets, and getting extra icons for tests for the pleasure of doing that.
Right.
That's not a bad deal, I think.
No.
Yeah,
Jeff.
like you've got assets out in hand, and you find a mag glass with this, and you're like, well, I'm not going to play the mag glass anyways, so why would I even want to draw it? Commit it,
Jeff in chat says, find the items you want to scavenge in Min. Do people still play scavenging? I forget that card exists.
Or
scavenging Min, scavenging Rex are the two I know.
Or just
even
Yorick.
just resourceful if you're grabbing survivor cards in particular.
Yeah. That's true. Ooh, beautiful. I love it. All right. So who would that be? Ian, do you want to read?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, take Lucky Penny.
Yeah, worked out perfect.
You got heads.
Lucky Penny, Omen of Misfortune. This is a 2-cost level 2 asset with a will and agility icon. Item, charm, cursed. Exceptional, forced when you reveal a bless or curse token during a skill test you are performing, flip a coin. On a heads, treat that token as a bless token. On a tails, treat that token as a curse token. If you treat a bless token as a curse token as a result of this effect, draw 1 card. I feel like we've talked about this card before, haven't we?
I think it was in a reveal article, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And takes up the accessory slot as well.
Yes, yeah. Takes up the accessory slot.
I mean, gotta get that coin flip, Like, awesome. That's fun.
So I use this in my Trish deck. And the reason I used it is I was using some of the Rogue and Seeker cards that basically, like the Faustian Bargain and the card drawing one, where you basically, like, it's free cards or cards that do more for the cost of putting curses in the bag.
Yep.
And a couple others, like the automatically succeed, or like find the clues, put the curse tokens equal to the shroud, like all that stuff, right? Like just all these things that cheat. And I basically put this in there to essentially cut the curse tokens in half.
Theoretically,
I didn't put a single bless in the bag. Like, I'm not looking to treat a bless as a curse token and draw a card. I'm just theoretically trying to, half the time those curses end up being a bless and whatever. And half the time they just do what they would normally do, and I've already accounted for that.
And it doesn't exhaust, so when you daisy chain a bunch of curses, you can try for every one. Like, that I think is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for curse builds, like, why not give yourself a chance to turn them into blesses? For like a blur situation where you're running both, still might be worth it to potentially turn some of the curses to blesses and get card draw if you happen to turn a bless into a curse. So I think it definitely has utility in those situations. I think I'm most happy that this card introduced coin flips to Arkham Horror.
Yeah.
It's just such a funny mechanic to introduce.
Yeah, and it is forced, as Lord Batboy's thrown out there. Like, you must do this, so you can't even like, oh, I won't flip for this one. It's
don't need the card draw, so we'll just ignore it.
And Network throws in chat, every Arkham player knows that a coin flip is never 50-50.
Right.
This is true.
Here's the question. Do you think we'll see flipping a coin on other cards? I kind of hope we don't. I kind of hope this is it, just to keep Lucky Penny that year.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of just tied to the theme of this card.
Right. Be a little forced.
I could see maybe like Silver Dollar, like a card.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it would do. But
pay the ferryman. You have to flip 2 coins.
Something like that. Yeah,
Yep.
I don't know. Or I don't know. I feel like a guardian card, like it's this like agent, like Roland or Joe, and they keep their silver dollar because it's their first silver dollar they ever made, and I don't know.
Maybe
we're just gonna get the troll toll card.
Yeah.
And here I was thinking of like Two-Face, networking chats, Harvey Dent. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Scott, Eye of Jinn. You want to read that for us?
I do. Eye of Djinn. I know it's Jinn. Vessel of Good and Evil. It is a 2-cost level 2 rogue asset. As 2 intellect icons, item, relic, blessed, and cursed. So Mateo can take it. Exceptional reaction. When you initiate a skill test during your turn, exhaust Eye of the Jinn. Set your base skill value to 5 for this test. If a blessed token is revealed during this test, ready Eye of the Jinn. If a cursed token is revealed during this test, you may take an additional action this turn. Takes up a hand slot.
That's pretty good. If you're running both, it's pretty good. The biggest ask of this, I think, is the hand slot.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I mean, the nice thing is it's always setting your base skill value to 5, and so regardless of what happens with bless or curse tokens, it's like a 2-cost. Always get a base skill of 5 once per turn, essentially.
Yeah.
My the deck I've played, I've only played a couple games with this card, but I basically slotted into my no test in Preston, but altered it slightly so it's like occasionally test in Preston, and it worked decent. Like it,
sure,
yeah. I did not use any bless or curse tokens in the deck. Like I literally use it as once per turn, set your skill to 5.
Just gain 4.
Yeah.
Yep. Just
I like it.
Set it to 5 and then do what you got to do, right? And there was a couple other ones like he uses the secret events to get to higher levels if he needs to. What's the one where the guy's like holding 2 knives or 2 axes? He's looking at the camera.
Trial by fire.
Trial by fire, yeah. So essentially, it's a repeatable trial by fire kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
cool.
Yeah, and if you have both this and trial by fire for Preston,
yeah,
getting a lot of tests. Let's see. I think the other thing too is for rogues having that ability to set, even if it's 1 skill test a turn, because there are kind of those skill cards that really give you a bunch of rewards for succeeding by a certain amount. Like rogue often does have just the approach anyway of I'm really just gonna nail this 1 skill test and like pump a bunch into it and hope for the best, and so this will help facilitate that too.
Nice.
But if you are running bless or curse or both, like getting that extra kicker that maybe you can do it twice in a turn and ready the eye. Or cool. A curse token taking an additional action is pretty huge. Like I would be happy to see a curse token. Like,
hopefully, it's not reattempting that test you just failed.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Maybe there'll be a few fewer curse tokens in the bag. That's probably a better way to say that. All right. Well, Armageddon is our next card. That is a level 4 mystic asset. It costs 4 resources, will and combat icons, spell and cursed traded. Uses 3 charges. Action, spend 1 charge. Fight. This attack uses will instead of combat. You get +2 will and deal +1 damage for this attack. For each curse token revealed during this attack, you may deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location, or place 1 charge on Armageddon. Takes up an arcane slot like you would expect. This one took me a little bit to kind of, before I realized that those 2 effects, like it's all written as 1 ability, but you have 2 effects. You have the basic, shriveling style targeted damage. And then you have this totally, it's conditional, but it's not based on whether that succeeds or fails. It's just based on the number of curses you draw. And then you can you can just spread it around if you draw like 3 curses. So this one seems good if you're running curses. And even if you're not, like, well,
If you're
Shriveling's-
not, I
it's a
think
lot of
there's
experience. Yeah, if you're not, it's a lot of experience just for a base shriveling.
Yeah. I think you're paying that cost and that XP cost and the fact it has 3 charges, you're paying for that second clause of the curse token thing. I've tried this one and Eye of Chaos out, and I got them to go off a couple times, but I honestly feel like it just wasn't worth it because I was, and maybe I was just going too much into curse.
Sure.
And I didn't try it with Favor of the Moon either, which I think changes the value on this, because you can just like curse token whatever. But I was just failing so many things, and it was like trying to fail forward like a survivor, but without other survivor tools. You know what I mean? Like it was, yeah. I found them really cumbersome.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar place as you, Scott, and I haven't gotten a chance to explore Curse anywhere near as much as Bless, so take my comments with a grain of salt. But yeah, just the weird line of wanting to have enough curses to make this go off in a way that actually makes it feel worth it, versus having so much curses in the bag that it's kind of like counteracting the bonus will from this card and anything else I'm throwing in that I wouldn't have to deal with otherwise. Yeah, I feel like maybe this is really like you want that Favor of the Moon there to guarantee that you're gonna get that when you want it, you know, and suddenly you're being able to deal 3 damage on command when you have that Favor of the Moon there. I guess the other nice thing is this doesn't have the drawback that like Shriveling and some of the other attack spells usually do for drawing certain tokens, so there's you're not going to get dealt damage or horror along the way. You can count on that at least.
Right. But also Shriveling, I mean, it costs less in XP because it's essentially equivalent to level 3 version. Costs less in resources, and it has 1 extra charge. Like it's that much more expensive than Shriveling, and in order to get the boost, you're also having to add curses, which sometimes is just beneficial, right? Like it's just a cheaper card, but it's still asking for setup, and I don't feel like the juice is worth the squeeze.
Is the juice worth the squeeze if you're playing with swarm enemies?
I don't think so.
Still not.
You might as well just do like, I mean, when you're attacking swarm enemies, you still just attack through them, right? In like a giant row. So it's not like the extra damage, you're like, whoo, I can sneak onto this one. Like you're just...
I mean, if they're 1 health swarms and you draw 3 curses, wouldn't that be 3 swarms down?
Yes, but I mean, if you just had a spell that just did +2 damage or +3 damage.
Oh my god, I keep forgetting that excess damage carries over.
Yeah.
Like I keep forgetting that you have trample against swarms.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So...
Yeah, never mind
Ian,
then. Just go...
Ian, do you want to read Eye of Chaos? Because I feel like we're talking about these two things.
Yeah.
It's very similar. So Eye of Chaos is a 5-cost level 4 mystic asset, will and intellect icon, spell cursed. 3 charges, spend a charge, investigate using will instead of intellect. You get +2 will for this test. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at this location. For each curse token revealed during this investigation, you may discover 1 clue at a connecting location or place 1 charge on Eye of Chaos.
See, this one to me, and I could be reading these totally wrong, this one to me feels even less enticing than Armageddon. Because it's more... You think it's the opposite?
Yeah, but just slightly.
Sure. Okay. And see, I'm slightly in the other direction, but like it's more expensive. It requires you to have revealed more locations and not grabbed clues from them. Which thinking as a solo player, I'm like, when is that? Like that's kind of a rarity, you know, unless I'm specifically building for that, like with a 6th Sense sort of thing. But then it's like, just run 6th Sense.
Yeah. I want to like these, and I want to love the full curse bag.
Yeah.
But the full curse bag just comes with so much weight.
Yes.
That you have to deal with those curses. And Bless has the benefit of you don't really have to deal with the like if you accidentally pull a Bless out of the bag, you're like, oh well, like +2, who cares? You know, unless you're playing Stella, then you're like, darn. Yeah, but Curse just asks a lot, and I don't feel like these two particular cards are worth the effort it takes to churn through those curse tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I feel like I need to test out the curse build more and really refine it, because I have the same feeling as you both, but I keep having this voice in the back of my head that says, like, you're just missing something. You just haven't built the right curse deck yet, which may be the case.
That could be the case.
Yeah.
But I think I do favor Eye of the Chaos a smidge more than Armageddon. And I think part of it is over time I've become a little hotter on the discover clues from connecting locations than I once was. Because I used to be more skeptical of those cards. Like, well, I've already grabbed the clue, you know? Like, I don't need a connecting location clue. But over time, I feel like I've been able to leverage those kind of effects more and more for whatever reason. Maybe you had to leave the location behind. Maybe that location has an effect that makes it hard to investigate. And it's easier just to grab it from connecting location. So,
and then there's the ass end of this trio, and that's Shroud of Shadows.
Go ahead,
Please
Nick.
tell me I'm right in assuming that Shroud of Shadows. All right, I'll read it. Shroud of Shadows, level 4, Mystic asset, 3 resource cost, willpower, agility icon, spell curse traded, uses 3 charges, action spend a charge, evade, uses will instead of agility, get +2 evade. If you succeed into the evaded enemy's non-elite, you may move that enemy to a connecting location, so you get another little bit of a rider. And then for each curse token revealed during this evasion attempt, you may move to a connecting location or place a charge on Shroud of Shadows that uses an arcane slot. Like, this is the worst of the 3, right?
Yeah, well, okay, so Mists of Relia exists at level 0.
Which is good.
And I would take level 0 over this.
Yes, 100%. So yes,
I don't
this is shit.
I mean...
Even if you're running curse, like we're already having a hard time justifying the other two in a full curse build. And all this does with those curses is move you. And guess what? That enemy's still with you. Like, you move 4 locations, great. So did whatever, this Deep One Bull or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So...
I feel like this is the wrong episode to be missing Sean, because he's probably screaming as
he loves these.
And
Diana!
Yeah.
We need our mystic expert. Yeah, I think more so than the other spells, this one really wants you to both draw the curse token and succeed on the test and get that full payoff where you're moving the enemy and moving away yourself. So kind of getting that like 2 location spread between you and a hunter, let's say. That's kind of the dream that you would get from Shroud of Shadows. But pretty much everything we said already applies to this one, I think, which is it's a lot of setup to really get the the juice, to use Scott's term.
Before we move on from this little suite here, is there any redemption at all for any of these 3 if you're running an Akachi Charges build? Which is basically all Akachi. You know what I mean? Because they have the ability to refill themselves, and she has a little bit of tech that allows you to swap charges around, and her weakness eats charges. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there any... Probably not, right?
You know what?
I said...
I'm willing to try it.
Sure. I'm planning to build an
tried
Akachi deck, so yeah, I might do that too.
And you know what? She has 5 willpower.
Right.
Which is a good start, because you're going to have to chew through those curses. Yeah, she might be the one that could maybe turn this around.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll say yes and no. It's the yes part is I do like the possibility of her extra charges. The no is, and maybe not so much a no as a maybe, is that you're going to have to do that in the right, like, 2-player multiplayer setup, because the disadvantage of Akachi is she doesn't have access to, like, a lot of the stuff that gets curses in the bag, other than, like, Promise of Power, because a lot of the stuff that puts curses in the bag is, like, Seeker or Rogue, so I know not a lot of people, including myself, will look to, like, Luke or Dexter because they have that access. But there's no reason why you can't be playing a team with Akachi and a Seeker or a Rogue or someone like that who's filling the bag with curses for you.
All right. Well, let's move away from those. Scott, do you want to read Spirit of Humanity for us?
Yeah, Calvin's new signature card. Spirit of Humanity is a 2-cost level 2 survivor asset. 1 willpower icon. Ritual, blessed, and cursed. So Mateo can take this as well. Ritual, blessed, and cursed traded. And then fast trigger, exhaust Spirit of Humanity and take a damage and a horror. Add 2 blessed tokens to the chaos bag. Or fast trigger, exhaust Spirit of Humanity and add 2 cursed tokens to the chaos bag. Heal 1 damage, 1 horror, and takes up an arcane slot. This is basically, to Calvin, it's +1 to all your stats, add 2 blessed to the bag. And then later on in the game, when you're, maybe maxed out at, like, you got the, was it the 5 of Pentacles? The survivor one out, and you're, like, at 6 health and 6 damage. 6 damage, 6 horror. Maybe you can, just put a couple curse tokens there and save yourself from actually dying. So
yeah, I love that this is like it gives you control over, like, more control, reliable control over Calvin's acceleration and deceleration. Like, this is a knob that you can turn on Calvin to be like, all right, we got to juice him a little bit, and turn it up, and then, oh no, hold back. The only problem is, and it's not a big thing, because obviously it's still nice to have that level of control, but when you add 2 curse tokens and remove a damage and a horror from Calvin, like, that's a -3 sweep, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Which sucks, but it's still worth it to be able to dial back in those rough moments.
I think by that point, like, you'll probably have a lot of assets out and, like, all your tools, and you'll be able to pass the test you need to. And it's just stopping you from dying, as opposed to the top ability where you're taking, like, the plus
where
3
that's your build up.
sweep. Yeah, that's like first turn, do it. Second turn, do it. Right? Like, just, yeah.
Yeah, obviously great in Calvin. I use this in my Father Mateo Bless build, just to get more blesses to the bag. That's mostly what I used it for, but there were also situations, where I was stacking up damage and horror where it just bailed out Mateo and healed some of that off. And I think one of the strongest things about this card compared to a lot of the Bless generation is that it's just a free trigger. A lot of the other Bless generation, you have to, take an action to play a card or put an asset down to do it. This is just, a free trigger that you can repeat over and over again. Obviously, until you kill yourself. but it's at least, so it has that limit to it. But it's at least in terms of actions, it's not asking anything of you, and you can just add tokens to the bag.
Yeah, great. Ian, then, do you want to read Harmony Restored and close us out for the player cards?
Yep. So Harmony Restored is a 3-cost level 2 survivor event, 2 will icons, fortune, and blessed traits. So there's that blessed trait again. Search the chaos bag for X curse tokens and return them to the token pool. X is the number of blessed tokens in the chaos bag. Gain 1 resource for each curse token removed in this way.
So you could probably pay for itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, right? Like,
yeah,
you probably wouldn't want to use it unless there's 3 or more blessed tokens and curse tokens in there.
Yeah, I honestly haven't played with this one.
It's weird, but I like it.
Yeah, it's really asking for a blur setup, right? Where you got bless and chaos curses going on.
This feels like the exact kind of I realize some people are really excited for the Blur's play, where like some people on your team are taking Bless, some people are taking Curse, and it's just a wild ride through the Chaos bag in the game, and like it's just tokens flying everywhere. And I like watching that, like the streamers that I watch who do that. I'm like, this is entertaining because I'm not participating. But as a player, I would just, ugh.
Yeah, you're throwing caution to the wind then, and you're just every test is a roller coaster. This one, I think you only use it in those situations, and I think you probably only take one of it.
Well, there is the card Tempt Fate though that
just adds 3 and 3. Yeah,
yeah, and draws you a card, and then you would play this card, and then gain 3 resources, and pull out the curse.
How much does Tempt Fate cost resource wise?
Zero.
It's zero.
Fast. Zero
okay,
fast,
well that's not
draws
bad.
A card.
Because I was gonna say the biggest thing for me about this is the 3 resource cost. That's the hurdle. And we've talked before about events, especially non-fast, like action events that also cost 3 resources. Like it's asking from you, you know. But yeah, I could see you being cheeky. I couldn't see that happening in fewer than 3 players, but I could see you being cheeky and going Tempt Fate, Harmony Restored.
Tempt Fate like literally costs you nothing. Doesn't cost you an action, doesn't cost you any resources, and it replaces itself, so it doesn't even cost you a card.
Right.
Like
it costs you space in the deck, which
but essentially it's deck thinning though.
It is, yeah, you're not wrong. But
just like shortcut, right?
The hardest part of my, you know what though? Shortcut. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is totally. Go ahead, Ian.
I too haven't played with this one because that whole blur setup is just something that I haven't touched yet. Not for me thinking it's not going to work, because I think it will, but more because it just kind of wrinkles my brain and trying to figure out how to set it up and kind of like two-handed play. But we just talking about Spirit of Humanity, where you're kind of adding a bit of both. Like I could see like some play there where let's say you're adding a bunch of blessed tokens to maybe you're Calvin and taking on that damage and horror, or maybe you're another investigator and you just want to add blessed tokens to the bag, but then later when it comes time to heal yourself, you add in curse tokens, but this Harmony Restored can kind of use those blessed tokens you already added to remove those curse tokens.
Which class adds both? Is that Mystic and Survivor? No, Survivor's mostly just blessed, right?
Yeah.
I think Mystic is the both one. And, well, I guess, no, Rogue is more curse.
Rogue is curse. Yeah. Seeker's curse.
Yep. Guardian's bless. And Survivor's bless and Mystic is both. Okay. So you could potentially see this being a self what do you call it? Like a self-charging card in like Agnes, or if you wanted to build Agnes that way. I feel like you're jumping through a lot of hoops at that point.
Yeah, I feel like this is for a 4-player Blurs game. I'd play it.
Sure, yeah, totally.
I don't think I'd be playing this in solo or 2-player.
Right. All right. Well, I mean, at 2 hours 10 minutes, we're starting the scenario review. So, if anyone's still with
high and
us,
tight,
spoilers for A Light in the Fog incoming. Yeah. All right. So Ian, do you want to lead us through A Light in the Fog?
Yep. So the story so far in Light in the Fog is pretty minimal. It's one of the present day scenarios. This is following on the car chase from Horror and High Gear. We've escaped, hopefully, from the enemies that were chasing us, made it to the lighthouse, and now we're essentially searching the lighthouse for the evidence that we left behind in the past. So that's the story. The setup starts off with these surface lighthouse locations. So this is one of those scenarios where you kind of start off with a smaller set of locations and it expands at a certain point. And then there's also relics set aside based on which of those you got back in Devil Reef. And if you're at a certain location, you're essentially able to add those to your hand. So nothing too crazy in terms of story or setup, but there are some interesting kind of features and mechanics going on. The first of which is, well, I'll talk about captured in a second because that comes up later in the scenario. The first is that the Doom stays on, kind of stays in play on the agenda when the first few agendas advance. So let's say you advance the first agenda, the Doom you had kind of stays there when you move to the second one. How did you guys feel about that particular
I was not
mechanic?
a fan of that.
Scared me a bit.
What's the mechanical... That's got to be just a psychological design, you know what I mean? Like, what's the mechanical difference between doing that and just subtracting the Doom threshold of the next one by 4 or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it has to literally just be to make the player feel like it's a constantly rising tide.
I think it messes with Mystic Doom play a bit.
How would it though?
It does.
Does it?
I feel like it does.
If the current Doom total and the threshold both were just reduced by 4 on Agenda 2, I don't know either.
It made me feel tense.
It did. Yeah, that's what I think that's the whole, I think that was the reason for it, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's mostly to control for how the acts and agendas interact with each other in this scenario. But yeah, I also had that thought in my head when I played of why is this happening to me? Why is this Doom sticking around? So moving beyond that, at a certain point, once you kind of find the key you need and unlock the basement, as it were, then the underground tidal tunnel locations get revealed. Our old friends, the tidal tunnels, which we've seen already a bunch at this point, by this point in the campaign. And over time, there's kind of a slow flooding of the tidal tunnel locations until you drown if you can't get out in time. So that slow flooding of the tidal tunnel locations, from the bottom up, essentially, is I quite enjoyed because it reminded me of our Constellation scenario. Not that the design team stole that from us. I'm not saying that, but it just was a similar mechanic, and I like that mechanic in general of kind of this creeping doom as the flooding rises to the top.
Yeah, it felt like flooding. That feeling has been through this entire campaign, and I think almost every time it's hit, it felt like it was actually flooding. I don't feel like there was a miss, and this one certainly wasn't it. So
this one I think felt the most like it though, just because the map was laid out in a very vertical manner, where the locations that were on the top of the map were the highest point, topographically speaking, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
And so then seeing the water filling up from the bottommost locations upwards was really evocative. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that whole mechanic of just... It's almost like a second agenda clock in a way. The agenda is still ticking away, and kind of that's what's causing the flooding, but it's a different way of representing that creeping threat or doom, really. And so the way to get out before you drown is to resign through the moon room, which is one of the tidal tunnel locations that are special to this scenario. But the problem is the moon room is flooded when you first reveal it, and you can't resign until it's unflooded. And so there's a special pump room that lets you kind of transfer water from one location to another. Or if you succeed by enough, you can just drain a room without having to add water to another location. I personally thought, although it can be annoying at times if the locations don't fall right, this whole pump room thing was pretty cool of adjusting the water levels between locations, I thought.
Yeah, and the test isn't terrible. It's a 2.
Yeah, 2 intellect or 2 agility.
Yep. So it's not bad. My thought is, in 4-player, do we all hunt for the pump room and then just plant someone there for the scenario?
Well, I was going to say, when I played through this with Casey, and I was Silas, when I was the enemy person, he was Amanda getting clues and stuff, but at this point he had some tech to get away from enemies, so I actually planted in the pump room, and I was sitting at a base 7 agility, because I was Silas. I had shoes out, running shoes, God, what's his name? Pete Sylvester, and Dark Horse. So I was at 7 agility, and I'm testing on a 2, and and I added in, the rogue skill with a wild icon. If you pass by 2, you take another action.
Yep, quick thinking.
Quick thinking, thank you. I have the worst problem with names. I can remember an entire card. I can remember the image of the card, but the words
I'm
at the
way
top,
better.
No.
I'm way better with player cards than I am with encounter cards. But yeah. Carry on.
And so, I remember there was 2 turns where I pumped 8 times successfully by 2 or more, and half the tidal tunnels were just empty. And I'm like, okay.
Silas sees a pump and he's like, "All right, I'm home."
yeah.
So is that a soft yes? Like in a 4-player game, planting someone there? That's probably a good idea.
Yeah,
I think so.
Especially with the number of encounter cards that can cause and the number of tokens that can cause. Like I think the cultist token adds a flood token if you fail. And there's at least 2 encounter cards that flood your location as well. So in a 4-player game, that could get out of hand pretty quick.
Yeah, I think it's action intensive more than, because we mentioned the skill tests are on the lower end. It's more of the kind of action cost, which is even in 2-player upwards, you should be able to handle that by planning someone there. It's really in solo where I feel like this scenario is most vulnerable to the RNG of where the locations turn up. Because I had one run where I'm trying to see if I can get the order right. I think the pump room showed up first, and then I eventually got to the moon room. And then having to go back to the pump room to which was 2 levels up to unflood it and then go back down. It was something like that. It's just a lot harder because as one investigator, you have to both kind of find the moon room and reveal the other locations and get back to wherever the pump room is to unflood it. And in some cases, it wasn't a big deal because the locations fell right. And in other plays, it was harder to cover all those actions.
But of course, sorry, I'm eating red vines right now. You can spend 2 clues to look at locations on the same level, which is really cool. That can help save some time if you've been getting enough clues up until then.
Yeah. And the other interesting mechanic in here, too, which I've actually taken advantage of, is that if you end your turn at a fully flooded location, you sink 1 down.
Oh.
And, I've actually used that to my advantage to save actions. I was... One of the harder solo runs I had was with Finn, because he got stuck with Frozen in Fear, early in the scenario. So, luckily, Finn has enough kind of action tools that somehow I scraped out the win, but the key play at the end was letting myself sink down. Finn just put his head underwater and sunk down to where he needed to go. And if it wasn't for that saving actions, I don't think I would have succeeded. But yeah, it's an interesting, because it can both hurt you having to sink down, but you can also use it to your advantage, I think.
Lord Batboy brings up too that his favorite part of the map design in this scenario is that all locations on each level are connected. It makes for a very 3-dimensional feel. I didn't realize that for the first couple turns, and then when I did, I was like, oh wow, this is way different. Just having to be able to move any location on your row was just,
It's like you're in, it's the 4 corners of one giant room is almost what it feels like. And you're just moving to a different side of the room, which was really cool.
Yeah.
I only played this one time. It was today, and it was with Mateo and Mary, neither of whom have a good stat lineup for that pump room. So
No, they certainly do not.
I kind of just said, I'm going to ignore that for now and focus on getting the keys I need. Didn't work out well. There's another reason that there was a very dramatic thing that happened to Mary, which I'll talk about when we get down to the notable cards. But yeah, so I think we talked about, and I'm pretty sure we covered this before, but we talked about Forgotten Age being the agility campaign. I think Innsmouth is the agility campaign. I think this is the campaign. Like, we got the cars, we got this pump room was agility. Like, this seems like, I feel like I've seen agility come up more in scenario cards in Innsmouth than I did in Forgotten Age.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but also the thing with TFA is that you want to use agility so you don't kill enemies.
Yes.
Whereas I feel in Innsmouth, you really do want to kill them.
You want to murder them. Yeah.
Because there's just so many of them that have, like, when you become engaged,
yes,
like, get screwed. Like, it just, yeah. So, yes, there's a lot of agility treacheries, but, yeah, I don't know.
Although there are some enemies in this scenario, which we'll talk about when we talk about the notable cards, that maybe you don't want to kill for various reasons. We'll talk about those. So, yeah, I mean, in some ways, I feel like Innsmouth, obviously there are a lot of differences, but they're kind of kindred spirits, Innsmouth and TFA, like the need to have lots of soaks, the need to have agility for certain tests. It's that kind of like action adventure type campaigns, I think. I think the final thing before we talk about some of the notable cards, which have mechanics of their own that we can talk about. There's 2 flashbacks you can access in this scenario. Flashback 12, which is basically, you have to do a little bit of work to get. You have to go up to the lantern room, get the white key, go back to the cliffside. But it does let you remove a bad stuff token and get some clues. And then flashback 13, you need to have the purple key at the Deep One Nursery. Also removing a bad stuff token. And also giving you insight into the life cycle of a Deep One. Ew. Taking your Deep One biology class. Alright, let's talk about some notable cards from this one then.
So,
what stood out to you?
Real quick, I'm going to... So, all right, the nursemaid and the hatchling, you got them both on here as a pair, which is obvious because the nursemaid popped up and I'm like, oh, that's not that bad. Then I move a location over and the hatchling pops up and I'm like, oh, little fucker. And I'm like, oh, he's only at 1 health. And then I realized that, oh, if I step on the hatchling, the nursemaid comes screaming into my location, which I thought was a really fun interaction. But I think of those two... The hatchling is the one I don't care about. Like, it's just evade it, and it just sits there, and you just leave it there. But that nursemaid, with the whole, when it engages you, you draw an encounter card. And hey, that encounter card loses Surge, so I mean, there's that. But I had this situation where there was 2 nursemaids at adjacent location, connecting locations. Mary was with one of them, and at the same location as the other one was also Osiris Marsh, who we'll talk about, Deep One Bull, and 2 lurking Deep Ones. It was a mob. And she was at the connecting location with just a single nursemaid. I'm like, I'm going to kill this nursemaid so that it's not buffing everyone else, and then I'll move away, regroup, and see what I can do. Engage that nursemaid, draw my encounter card. I drew Deep One Assault. That nursemaid disengaged with me. All of the other Deep Ones moved down. They all engaged with Mary, so I had to draw 2 more encounter cards because now I had 2 nursemaids. The next card I drew, Deep One Assault.
Oh my god.
So Mary was down. Like, her turn was first action, engage, dead. Because of just all the shit that came down on her, which was rough. So yeah, like, that's, don't let the Deep Ones snowball, is I guess what I'm getting at here.
I found the hatchlings really annoying just because they have Surge. Like,
Yes.
Surge.
Yeah, but once they're on the table, then it's just like evade it and whatever.
Yeah, we don't see as much Surge in Arkham as we did in Lord of the Rings, but here it is. And I definitely drew some Surge chains of hatchlings in this scenario, where you draw a hatchling into hatchling.
You literally walk into the nursery.
And you lose an action or it attacks you. So take a horror, lose an action. Also Surge.
You all,
if you draw a couple of those, then it's that whole design of the hatchling and the nursemaids. It just there's a lot of kind of encounter chaining in this scenario compared to what we usually see in Arkham scenarios, where it's usually uses a light touch with that, which definitely adds to the challenge of it, because like the hatchling isn't really a tough enemy, so the toughness comes in what it does and how it can swarm. So yeah, overall I think I like the design, like a different way of making the enemies challenging, but I'm not gonna lie, I definitely had some moments of frustration where I'm like, come on. Like the one you spoke about.
At least the hatchling only moves one deep one. Deep one assault moves everybody.
Yeah.
I hate that treachery. Like, I
think there's, if I'm remembering right, there's also the bad stuff token that moves enemies, right? If you fail.
I believe so, yeah. I'm trying to remember which one that is.
Yeah. So that whole combination is rough. Let's talk about the lighthouse keeper in the building, in the room, Osiris Marsh, who is kind of the boss who chases you down. But we've seen bosses before, but he does something a little bit different, which is with the taken captive treachery, he can actually capture an investigator and throw them in a cell. What were you guys' experiences with the captured mechanic and thoughts on it?
I thought it was super cool. I liked it. I feel like this is a growing on Blood on the Altar, where the whole sacrifice that kidnapped kind of thing. I liked this one. It was just more interactive, right? So I enjoyed it. Like, I mean, I didn't like it getting, actually captured, but I enjoyed the mechanics and the idea of it.
I'm trying to remember the wording on the holding cells specifically. It says there's an action. The result of the action is to free an investigator at this location. Yes. Does that mean that they can move away, or does that mean that they do move away? Do you know what I mean?
Can?
Okay.
I think.
Because I was trying to... I only got captured once, luckily. And I had this moment where I read it, and I said, okay, free an investigator. I was like, wait a minute. Does that mean that I move Sister Mary out of the location? Or does that mean that she can now move out of the location? I assumed it was she has the ability to, she doesn't get to,
Yeah, I think that's... Because you take their mini card, turn it sideways, and indicate they've been captured. When you release them, I assume it just writes them.
Just stands them up. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I thought it was really cool. It was really fun. I was super suspicious when you flip that one agenda or whatever, and it's like, put Osiris Marsh in the victory display. And I was like, oh, I don't trust that one bit.
Yeah. Seen enough horror movies, played enough Arkham.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think he has that treachery worth his salt that attaches to him, even if he's in the...
Even if he's, I'm
like, I trust this even less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he comes out
we finally found the person saltier than Sean. It took a while, but we did it.
Yeah. We got there.
Actually, all the times I've played this scenario, I've yet to have someone captured, so I can't, adequately comment on it, I think. I've just gotten very lucky, I think, like the people who... Well, I also play a lot of high agility investigators, too. But I've happened to pass that test on Taken Captive, or just not seen that card come up, so... I'm looking forward... It sounds weird to say. I'm looking forward to getting captured at some point. I can fully experience it.
It's an action sink is what it is. Just in an... And especially if it hits you late game, that's when you're just, ready to flip the table. Because it's like, great, there's two plus actions now that I'm losing. And in the last couple rounds of the game. Yeah.
So fun. I like that it's a whole separate location that they get dragged off to.
Yeah.
Talking about sense of place in a card game. So since we're kind of running late on time, let's go ahead and move on over to strategies. Any particular strategies that stand out to you in terms of this scenario?
Don't get captured.
Mm-hmm. Good strategy.
Yeah, have a cancel ready for Deep One Assault.
Oh my god, yes. That's just good Innsmouth advice.
And honestly, bring someone who can just sit in the pump room.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I still haven't really figured this one out solo, honestly. Like, it's...
I don't know how... Oh my god,
It's
solo.
a
This one has to be a
beast.
nightmare.
Yeah, it is so reliant on the RNG of where the locations pop up in the tidal tunnel, the moon room and the pump room. Obviously, anything involving movement is going to be helpful in that regard. Yeah. Track shoes, shortcut, Pathfinder, any of those type of cards.
So
that's just true for a lot of Arkham. So
yeah, well, especially this campaign, we've had some of the biggest maps in Innsmouth.
Yep.
My initial thought was beeline it to the basement or beeline it down into the caves as fast as you can. But which I think is still a good idea, but those first few acts also advance the agendas. And the two conditional like flashback keys aren't those both up above? Both of those keys, the white and the purple, I think is what they are.
The white key is one. I think the purple key shows up on one of the tidal tunnel locations, if I remember right.
Sure. Okay. Well,
yeah, but the white key definitely takes a lot of time to do if you are trying to beeline it. So I definitely felt that tension, and I've rarely gotten the white key for that reason.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely didn't get it. Gnarl's Apprentice says avoid resolutions in previous scenarios that add doom to the beginning of the scenario. Yeah, that was part of the reason why I had a rough time in this one, was because I started with a doom on that first agenda, and that just like, I don't think I got downstairs until well into Agenda 2, which was...
Yeah, on a scenario that pushes you so hard for tempo and time and speed, like, having turns taken away from you is just...
Yeah,
brutal.
It hurts.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any super clever strategies. Just if you have opportunities to gather clues at particular locations early on, do it, because then you can use those clues to peek at the locations later, and that peeking has been pretty crucial. Other than that, figuring out how to manage the hatchlings and the nursemaids is a big one, because sometimes I've been forced or tempted to not kill the hatchlings because you don't want to bring the nursemaid down on you. But then, like, not dealing with the nursemaid, like, they boost, I forgot what stats they boost, but I think, like, the combat and evade of people at connecting monsters at connecting locations, so that's annoying. So I'm not sure what the best strategy is, but just make sure you have one.
Yeah.
Are my wise words.
Yeah.
So if you have someone who's a very efficient, dedicated killer, then maybe you're just going to have to eat those extra encounter cards and just dispatch. But otherwise, I've had to do a lot of dodging and evading. All right, let's talk about Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask real quick. I know we have cards that prevent bad stuff on locations when you fail to investigate, like read the signs. Do we have bad cards? Pretty much just read the signs. Do we have cards that prevent bad stuff when engaging an enemy? I don't think we do.
Yeah, no.
And this would have been the...
Mind Wipe.
Mind Wipe, okay. Ooh, is Innsmouth the Mind Wipe campaign? No, it isn't. All right, that was all I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Vern.
So in terms of resolutions, so I'll start off with the bad first. If you fail to escape during Agenda 4, so Agenda 4 is kind of the ending where everything is flooding slowly up from the bottom. If you're defeated then you're killed by drowning. Like, that's it. So don't do that. If you're defeated during Agenda 1, 2, or 3, though, before you get to that point, then it's actually not too bad. You get pretty much everything you do otherwise from the good resolutions, except for you don't get a diving suit, and you get whatever trauma you got from being defeated, of course. So if you're going to get defeated early on, I guess is the moral of the story. Otherwise, you either resign from the moon room, which gets you the diving suit, and you get, if you have the red key, you get the key, which is helpful later, potentially. We'll talk about that later. Black key from the Sunken Archives, you get a map, and you get whatever relics you had. And then R2 is if you resign from the gatehouse, which is only available at that point before the Falcon Point locations disappear, because they do disappear. The surface locations. But again, similar to the R4, you get all the good stuff except the diving suit. So it's a weird kind of binary where no matter what happens, you're pretty much okay, except for not getting the diving suit, except for if you happen to get defeated during Agenda 4. So I think it has this weird dynamic, whereas if you think you're doing really badly early on, like, you're kind of better off just resigning or getting defeated early. Yeah, like, or just run for... Like, because there are certain like, a lot of games of Arkham are close where you don't know, but there are certain games where everything just goes bad early on. Like, just get out of Dodge, I feel like, at that point.
We call that pulling a Tetsuo. just dying for the greater good.
Yeah, because the penalty for losing later on is really bad. You get killed. So, yeah.
Mateo and Mary were defeated during Agenda 4, so they both got killed.
Oh no.
And I was like, well, I can either start over and do a whole new campaign, or I can bring 2 level 0s into the Lair of Dagon. I think I just want to start over. Like, I was like, I don't want to go into scenario 7 with 2 level 0s.
Fair. Yeah. The final bit is just, you can't, this is one of those where you won't be able to spend the XP you get here until you get to, the Maelstrom until the end. So, final impressions. What are your final thoughts on this scenario?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's really fun. But it's also, it has a couple of weird things going for it, like the daisy chaining of encounter effects, or encounter draws rather. Like, God, that's got to be one of the worst single action effects I've ever had in Arkham, where it was, Deep One Assault by Mary. And also, like you said, it might be more beneficial to just resign early. So other than those weird little artifacts, I guess you could call it, it is a really fun scenario. I do really enjoy it. It's a big map, which is a lot of fun. The story that it tells is really cool. Like, you're at this island and then it's slowly filling up with water in the caves. That's awesome. So I really enjoyed it.
If I were to use one word to describe it, it would be harrowing. And I love how tight it's felt in the 2-player games I've played. I will say I'm not sure I fully enjoy it solo, just because it can... You can just lose because things came out in the wrong order, as far as locations and where they came out, and the actions required to move among them. Like, it's tough. I think you pretty much have to bring some movement solutions, as many as you can. But I mean, maybe that's just Innsmouth, right? Like, Innsmouth is the campaign. You just have to be able to move. So... But I really liked it. I thought it was great. I loved the first time I played through when I'm like, oh, okay, we still have the lighthouse locations up there. Sounds like we're going to go under. You know what? We'll go down. We'll see what we can get. And then we'll come back up and resign. And then you go down and it's like, those things disappear. It's like, oh, shit.
I'm overall pretty positive about this one, and in general, just continuing with all the Innsmouth scenarios we've talked about so far. Generally really positive about this campaign. Yeah, I think the one caveat is similar to Scott's, that in solo, it kind of rides a fine line of frustration. And at times it stays on the good side of that, where I have fun. But there have been a few plays where, because of the kind of size of the map and the action intensive nature of it can be a little frustrating. And then also the encounter chaining hurts most in solo, whereas in multiplayer you have more bodies to kind of handle that. And in solo, just like any similar kind of game, solo hurts the most when you're just drawing tons of encounter cards at once. But overall, still like the scenario. I like the slow flooding. I like the Osiris Marsh, like hunting you down in the captured mechanic. So I think there's enough here that it makes me pretty positive about it.
Agreed.
Ian, I know you've mentioned you not quite finding your footing with Trish. Trish has been my most successful solo play of this scenario.
Oh, I believe that.
Like, because I have both, I have shortcuts in there, and
that's overrated
what's it
card.
Called? Yeah, when you're not Pathfinder, the other one, where you're not engaged with an enemy, you can exhaust it to move.
That's
free.
Pathfinder.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking of okay, Pathfinder. What's the one where you enter with a clue and you get +2?
Field work.
Right. I those two cards are like,
they go great together. It's peanut butter and peanut butter and chocolate,
they're
man.
Paired in my mind, right? Like they are like two oxygen molecules. Like they share covalent bonds.
When Arkham gets around to making dual cards, that'll be one of the first ones. Pathfinder / Fieldwork.
Yeah. Pathwork.
Field Finder.
Yeah, I was trying to remember like how Trish did in this one for me as my kind of face check run, and because it was such an up and down campaign, in some scenarios she did well and some she didn't, so I pulled up my notes. This was the one I mentioned a few podcasts back that was my quickest defeat ever in Arkham. I think my solo Trish lost in like turn 3 of Light in the Fog. I don't remember the exact circumstances, but I pretty much think it was like a hatchling surge into a hatchling surge into something else terrible, and I just couldn't get out from under it, and she got knocked out from horror.
Ouch.
Yeah. But I could see her being good in that. This is just exactly what we were talking about, that if you draw a certain chain of encounter cards solo, then gonna have a bad time.
Were you playing, because I've been taking, is it Forewarned, the Seeker cancel? Drop a clue, cancel. That one in Trish in solo, I think is unbelievably good.
Because I did not take that one.
Because you can drop a clue when you want to also, if you have an enemy, and then use Working a Hunch to pick it up fast, and then evade, and then leave. Like, it just...
Yep.
Yeah. It's sometimes there to cancel Deep One Assault, and sometimes it's there to cancel whatever comes off the deck that you can, just so you can get a clue down, just so you can use it to use Trish's ability. So, yeah, hot tech there for you.
Yeah, I do think if I do another run through Innsmouth with solo Trish, which I think I probably will, knowing everything that I do, that I'll be a lot more successful. That's it for Light in the Fog.
All right. Well, we're at 2:45, so why don't we skip Tentacle Time this time? Because this, I mean,
super high and tight.
Okay, super high and tight. We get 3 words each.
Okay.
Scott, you're first.
Slay the Spire.
I'm so glad I said 3 and not 2. All right, Ian.
Sega Genesis Mini.
Oh! I wish we had more time to discuss that. All right.
Can I guess yours, Nick?
Sure.
Dungeons and Dragons.
You know what? You're wrong.
Oh, damn it.
I'm going to say Call of Cthulhu.
Oh, right.
Even though I'm not involved with it, but it's on my Twitch channel. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us, guys. Thank you so much to our live audience for sticking with us for this. What day is it today? Sunday night recording?
Sunday. Yep.
Jesus Christ. It was a long one, but we will catch you guys next time for episode 109. So have a good night.
Peace.